My parents forced tequila down my throat, told police I was mentally ill. Now they face prison, and I hold the videos that could ruin 5 families. My folks are the most savage people I've ever encountered. From the time I was 10 years old, their idea of quality time was to educate my older brother, Kevin, and me how to drink responsibly. Every Friday night, my father called it training night. We'd gather around the kitchen table as Dad poured shots of tequila and Mom cheered us on, timing how long we could go without making a face. If we gagged or coughed, we'd have to perform push-ups until our arms gave out. The rule was simple. The family that drank together stayed together. It was the same rule that their parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents used. I thought it was ridiculous, but my older brother, Kevin, took to it like a fish to water. By the age of 14, he was Dad's favorite drinking companion. They'd stay up until 4 a.m., holding beer pong tournaments in our garage, and Mom would brag to her friends about her son's ability to drink large men beneath the table. When Kevin began showing up to breakfast with shaky hands, Dad simply chuckled and handed him a beer, calling it hair of the dog. The more Kevin drank, the more attention he received, including new gaming systems, concert tickets, and even a motorcycle for his 16th birthday. Meanwhile, I became the family disappointment by default, not because I was failing school or getting in trouble, but because I was a straight-A student, captain of the debate team, working part-time to pay for college, and remaining clean. Mom's favorite remark was, "You know what your problem is? You judge everyone instead of loosening up and having fun." However, it was difficult to take her seriously when she slurred her words and tripped into the furniture. I considered calling the authorities, but I was afraid because my best friend Maris had tried for her own family, and as soon as the social worker left, Maris's father covered her in bruises. So I very much eliminated CPS as an option after that. But then came the day that altered everything. Kevin's 18th birthday celebration. He was hunched over on the porch, joking about the terrible pains in his side that had been hurting him for several weeks. "Probably just need to build more tolerance," he joked, his skin appearing slightly yellow under the porch light. How did Dad respond? He slapped Kevin on the back and pulled out a bottle of $200 scotch that he had been conserving. "It's nothing a good drink can't fix." I swear I thought he was pranking him, but that's when my mother pulled out her iPhone and began video the entire incident for his future children. That's when I realized that if I wanted to survive, I needed to cooperate. I became an Oscar-worthy actress, pretending to laugh at their drunk stories and be hammered when all I was doing was pouring wine bottles into plant pots. The saddest part? It works. I was finally a member of the family. Everything changed after I departed for Oregon State. My randomly allocated roommate was in alcohol addiction treatment, and she introduced me to an entire world of people who could have fun without poisoning themselves. I joined the university sober support group, studied about addiction research, and realized that what happened in my home was not normal family bonding but intergenerational trauma disguised as tradition. For the first time in my life, I felt clear-headed and cheerful. I even started training for marathons, which I couldn't have done while pretending to be hungover every weekend. And during my sophomore year's winter break, I chose to come home for the holidays, which was really crazy and risky. I hoped that this would be the time when I could break the cycle and persuade my family to stop drinking for good. In the days preceding up to it, I did everything I could to ensure that everything ran smoothly. I gathered photographs from my sober friends' gatherings, and even purchased alcohol-free beer and champagne. I kept telling myself not to get my expectations up, but as I packed my car, I couldn't quit thinking about how we'd all finally get along like a family. Dad slapped a beer in my hand as soon as I got through the door. "There's our college party girl." When I gently declined, explaining that I was preparing for a race, Mom's countenance darkened. "Oh, so you're one of those now? Too good for your own family?" The night continued from there. When I tried to go to bed early, they followed me into my room with a bottle of tequila. "You're not ruining Christmas by being a sanctimonious switch," Mom said with irritation. What occurred next is still causing me nightmares. Dad locked my arms while Mom tried to push the bottle into my mouth. I kept my jaw clenched shut, tears flowing down my cheeks, till Dad seized my nose and cut off my oxygen. When I finally gulped for air, Mom poured tequila down my throat. I vomited right away and they laughed. She's out of practice. They spent the next hour attempting to push more booze into me as I fought and shouted. Kevin stared from the doorway, too inebriated to help even if he wanted to. I feigned to pass out, and when they finally departed, I used my phone to record them through my cracked door, joking about breaking me back in. I then called 911 from my closet. The sirens became louder, piercing through the night air. Through my closet door, I saw Mom and Dad halt mid-laugh, their expressions turning from enjoyment to terror. Mom dropped the tequila bottle, which smashed on the hardwood floors. "Did you hear that?" Mom's voice shifted from hammering to crisp in seconds. Dad stumbled to the window and pulled aside the curtain. Red and blue lights reflected on his face. Someone called the cops. They both turned to face my chamber. I remained completely motionless, phone clenched in my sweaty palm, hoping they would assume I was still unconscious. My throat stung from the forced booze, and puke clung to my clothing. "Check to see if she's actually unconscious," Dad instructed. "You check," Mom said back. "This is your fault for pushing too hard." "My fault? You're the one who poured it down her throat." Their dispute allowed me time to get out of the closet and sit on my bed, eyes closed, breathing shallowly. Heavy footsteps approached. Dad's hand gripped my shoulder and shook fiercely. "She's out cold," he said. The doorbell rang, followed by an authoritative knock. "Police, open up." Mom hurried for the Febreze, spraying it all over the house while kicking broken glass under the couch. "Kevin, get down here and act normal." I heard Kevin stagger down the stairs, colliding with walls. Through barely open eyelids, I saw him grab the banister, his entire body trembling. Even in the low light of the corridor, his skin was a sickening yellow. "Stand up straight," Dad snarled, hitting Kevin on the back. "Remember, we were just having a quiet family evening." The knocking became more intense. "Police, we need you to open this door." Dad smiled like a salesperson when he opened the door. Two officers stood on our porch, their hands resting on utility belts. "Evening, officers. Something wrong?" "We received a 911 call from this address," the taller officer stated, peeking past Dad into the house. "Report of a disturbance." "Must be a mistake," Dad remarked calmly. "We're just having a quiet family night." That's when I entered. I stumbled out of my room, vomit still staining my Oregon State hoodie, throat raw and stinging. The policeman's gaze quickly focused on me. "Miss, are you all right?" the female cop inquired, stepping forward. Before I could say anything, Mom ran over and wrapped her arm around me. "Oh, officers, I'm so sorry. Our daughter's been having some mental health issues since she went to college. She's been acting out." "She's been unstable for months," Dad said, his voice full of phony concern. "We've been trying to get her help, but she refuses. Tonight she had another episode." I tried talking, but my throat felt like sandpaper. The words came out raspy. "They forced alcohol down my throat." Mom tightened her hold on my shoulder. "See? She makes up these stories. We found her drinking alone in her room. We think she's having a breakdown." Officers exchanged looks. The male cop addressed me immediately. "Miss, we need to speak with everyone separately. Can you come outside with Officer Martinez?" As I approached the door, I noticed Kevin debating between following me and staying with our parents. His hand shook furiously and he continued to touch his side where the pain was tormenting him. His devotion flickered in his bloodshot eyes like a dying light bulb. Officer Martinez spotted the vomit on my clothes right away while we were outside on the porch. "What happened tonight?" I took out my phone with shaky fingers. "I have a video. They held me down and forced tequila into my mouth." Behind us, through the window, I could see Mom gesticulating violently while Dad chatted with the other cop. She continued pointing at me and shaking her head. Mrs. Chen, our neighbor next door, stared through her slats, undoubtedly wondering what the family was up to now. "Can I see the video?" Officer Martinez inquired gently. I played the recording. Even through my open door, I could hear my parents joking about breaking me back in, their voices inebriated but distinct. Officer Martinez's expression darkened. "We need to see this," she said to her partner. Mom's shriek shattered the darkness. That's taken out of context. She's editing things to make us look bad. Where's your warrant? Dad shouted, his pleasant salesman persona fading. You can't just come into our home and accuse us of things based on our mentally ill daughters. Illusions. The male officer spotted Kevin slumped against the wall, his complexion waxy and yellow, even in the porch light. Sir, is your son all right? He appears to be in medical distress. He has the flu, Mom replied hastily. Just the flu. Kevin, tell them you're fine. Kevin opened his mouth, then closed it. He stared at me first, then at our parents, and then back at me. His silence spoke volumes, yet he couldn't force himself to decide. We need paramedics here, Officer Martinez stated over her radio. Possible alcohol poisoning and medical emergency. This is ridiculous, Dad remarked, his voice rising. I golf with Sheriff Patterson every Sunday. This is all a misunderstanding between family members. My daughter's just bitter because we had to cut her off financially. She's always had this holier-than-thou attitude about drinking. While we waited for the paramedics, Mom's fingertips brushed over her phone. Within minutes, my phone began to buzz with texts from aunts, uncles, and cousins. Traitor, how could you do this to your parents? Your mom says you're having a breakdown. Get help. The paramedics arrived and quickly proceeded to examine me. One shone a light down my neck as I told what had happened. The searing sensation caused me to cringe. Chemical burns consistent with forced alcohol consumption, the paramedic informed the officers. She needs to be checked at the hospital. She did it to herself, Mom said. For attention, she's always been dramatic. Kevin's hand returned to his side, a grimace on his face. The medical team detected the movement. Sir, we should examine you as well, the paramedic told Kevin. He's fine, Dad stated confidently. Just the flu. But under the bright porch lights, Kevin's condition was impossible to ignore. The yellowing of his complexion, the quivering of his hands, and the way he repeatedly touched his side. The paramedics recognized all of the traditional indicators immediately. How long have you been experiencing abdominal pain? The paramedic questioned Kevin straight. Kevin stared at Dad and murmured, few weeks. It's nothing, you know, Dad responded, changing the tone to casual chat. Sheriff Patterson and I were just talking about situations like this at poker last week, families having disagreements that get blown out of proportion. He continually asserts, these things are better handled privately. The threat was not subtle. Officer Martinez stiffened his jaw. Sir, we're going to need everyone to come to the station. Formal statements. I'm calling our lawyer, Mom stated. This is harassment. Our daughter is sick. And instead of getting her psychiatric help, you're enabling her delusions. The officers started collecting evidence. They collected the smashed tequila bottle, photographed my vomit-covered clothes, and documented the incident. Dad clenched his fists as they worked, his jaw rigid with barely contained wrath. My phone kept buzzing. Mom had sent a group text to her entire extended family. Please pray for us. My name is having another episode and I called the police on us. We're heartbroken. She needs mental help but refuses to get it. The responses came in immediately. Uncle Ray. The ungrateful brat. Aunt Carla. After all you've done for her. Cousin Mark. Not all children deserve decent parents. At the station we were separated for questioning. I sat in a small room, my throat still stinging, as Officer Martinez took my statement. Into the glass I saw Uncle Mike, Mom's brother, running into the parking lot. He had been their drinking partner for 3 decades and happened to be a lawyer. My client won't be answering any questions, he declared, storming into the station like he owned it. His breath smelled of whiskey. That's when things took an unexpected turn. Uncle Mike produced a folder with documents. My clients have been concerned about their daughter's mental health for years. Here's the documentation. Officer Martinez glanced through the papers. I got glimpses of medical documents from years ago. My heart fell as I knew them from when I was 16 and refused to drink on Thanksgiving. My parents had taken me to the doctor, alleging that I was exhibiting antisocial behavior and paranoid beliefs regarding drinking. These forms indicate a pattern of mental instability. Uncle Mike explained calmly. My clients have been dealing with this for years. They pay for her college, her apartment, everything. And this is how she repays them. My phone vibrated with a text from Kevin. Why couldn't you just pretend for one more night? The treachery hurt deeper than the booze burns in my throat. Even now, after seeing them shove liquor down my throat, he still believed I was the problem. Officer Martinez departed to talk with her partner. Through the door, I could hear Mom's voice traveling down the corridor. She's always been jealous of Kevin. He's successful, popular, and knows how to have fun. She's just bitter and wants to tear our family apart. Martinez returned with a carefully bland expression. The video evidence is concerning, but your parents' lawyer is arguing it's taken out of context. Without Kevin's cooperation, it's your word against theirs. What about my throat? The burns? They're claiming you did it to yourself, that you've done things like this before for attention. I thought about Maris, how her bruises had not been enough to keep her safe, and how the system had failed her. Now it was failing me, but in a different way. My parents had learned from families like Maris's to leave psychological rather than apparent damages. Create a paper trail that makes the victim appear insane. We'll need to look into this further, Martinez said. In the meantime, do you have somewhere safe to stay? Safe. The word felt strange. Home had never been safe, but now my parents had ensured that it would be. They had already launched a campaign to turn everyone against me. By tomorrow, I'd be the ungrateful daughter who called the authorities on her beloved parents, the mentally disturbed teenager who needed assistance but refused to accept it. My phone flashed up with a Facebook notice. Mom had created a public post. Please pray for our family tonight. Our daughter is struggling with mental health issues and addiction. We love her so much but don't know how to help her anymore. She called the police on us tonight after we tried to stop her from drinking. Alone in her room. Our hearts are breaking. Comments were immediately coming in. Family, friends, neighbors, and bowling league members all offered prayers and support to my poor parents dealing with such a troubled child. I scrolled through, seeing my reputation erode in real time. Then I saw something that made my blood turn cold. Mr. Davidson, my father's golf mate who worked at the local news station, commented, "So sorry to hear this, buddy. Let me know if you need anything. By tomorrow, this will be more than just family gossip." Dad was already 3 steps ahead, transforming me into the antagonist in a scenario in which I was the victim. The man who had trapped my arms as my mother poured poison down my mouth would be portrayed as a caring parent. The woman who referred to me as a sanctimonious witch would be the heartbroken mother. The station's fluorescent lights made things seem strange as I sat there, watching my life unfold on a phone screen. Officer Martinez had left to make copies of my evidence, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the incessant buzz of notifications. Each ping felt like an additional nail in my coffin. Mom's Facebook post went viral in our little neighborhood, with 67 comments and counting. The bowling league president volunteered to set up a prayer circle. Dad's golf mates were organizing a fundraising for my treatment. Even my high school English teacher had mentioned that she had always felt something was off. My palms shook as I scanned the messages. Then one caused me to freeze. It came from Benji, the bartender at my folks' favorite watering establishment. "Kevin's been coming to AA meetings at the church, 3 months now. Your parents don't know." Before I could digest this shocking news, Uncle Mike returned to the room, briefcase in hand. He slammed down a stack of paper thick enough to kill a small creature. "These are your parents' financial records, showing they pay your tuition, rent, car insurance, health insurance, even your phone bill. You're completely dependent on them." He took out another document. "And this is a withdrawal form, already prepared. One signature from them, and you're cut off from everything. Is that really what you want?" Officer Martinez returned, staring at us with hardly hidden displeasure. "Sir, you can't threaten a witness." "I'm not threatening anyone," Uncle Mike stated calmly. "I'm simply explaining the family dynamics to help my niece make an informed decision." My phone rang with a text from my roommate. "Your mom just friended me on Facebook. She's asking really weird questions about your mental health. What should I do?" The walls felt as if they were closing in. Mom was already working her angles, attempting to turn my support system against me. I presented the text to Martinez, who took note but appeared increasingly overwhelmed by the familial drama unfolding. "Look," Uncle Mike said with a whiskey-like breath that made me scream, "your parents are willing to forget this whole misunderstanding. They'll even pay for therapy, real therapy, not whatever experimental nonsense you've been doing at college. All you have to do is admit you were confused about what happened tonight." Confused? My voice broke. They held me down and forced alcohol down my throat. "You were hammered," he said simply. "Memory plays tricks. Maybe you had a few drinks to calm your nerves about coming home. Things got out of hand, and your parents tried to help. These things happen." Officer Martinez's companion knocked and entered. "We need to transport the brother to the hospital. His condition is deteriorating." Through the doorway, I saw Kevin being loaded onto a gurney. His complexion had become yellow and he clutched his side. For a brief time our eyes connected and I saw fear, genuine panic. "Kevin!" I attempted to stand, but Uncle Mike blocked my way. "He'll be fine," he explained. "Just need some fluids. The stress of tonight hasn't helped his flu." But I knew better. I had done significant research on liver illness after observing Kevin's symptoms months ago. Jaundice, abdominal pain, and tremors. He was in terrible difficulty. Martinez sensed my distress. "We'll make sure he gets proper medical attention." "His liver is failing," I exclaimed. "He needs to be evaluated for transplant eligibility. Please tell the doctors to run a full hepatic panel." Uncle Mike's face clouded. "Now you're playing doctor? This is exactly the kind of delusional behavior your parents have been dealing with." My telephone rang. Dad's contact photo from last year's 4th of July party, showing him drinking a beer, filled the screen. Against my better judgment, I responded. "Are you happy now?" His tone was icy. "Your brother's being taken to the hospital because of the stress you've caused. If anything happens to him, it's on you. He's sick because you've been poisoning him since he was 10. We gave him a family tradition to belong to. You're the one who rejected us, who thinks you're better than everyone else." Mom's voice rang out in the background. "Tell her about the diary." My blood became chilly. "What diary?" "The one you kept freshman year of high school," Dad explained. "Where you wrote about how much you hated us, how you fantasized about running away, how you wished you had different parents. We kept it, in case we ever needed to show people who you really are." The call went dead. I stared at the phone, remembering the diary. I'd stashed it under my mattress, full of the standard teenage anger and frustration that any kid writes when forced to watch their parents wobble about drunk every night. But, taken out of context. "I need to go," I told Martinez. "My brother needs me at the hospital." "You're free to go," she told you. "But I strongly advise against contact with your parents right now." Uncle Mike smirked. "She's right. In fact, I'll be advising my clients to seek a restraining order if you come near them, for their safety." Outside the station, the December air felt like small needles in my lungs. I sat in my car, the heat blasting, trying to figure out my next step. My phone vibrated with a notification from the bank app. My checking account, which had $3,000 this morning, suddenly shows $478.03. What is the tuition payment for next semester? Gone. What happened to the rent money I saved? Transferred out. Even the $500 emergency reserve I had in a separate savings account had been depleted, everything except what I received from my part-time work at a separate bank. I drove to the hospital, dazed. The emergency department was overflowing with holiday catastrophes, kitchen burns, decoration-related injuries, and more than a few alcohol-related occurrences. I located Kevin's room after convincing a sympathetic nurse that I was his sister. He appeared tiny on the hospital bed, with IVs running into both arms. The strong overhead lighting made his jaundice impossible to overlook. Alexandra, his girlfriend, sat alongside him, her hand covering her still flat stomach. "You shouldn't be here," she replied without looking at me. "Your parents said you're having some kind of breakdown." "David, please, that's not true." She eventually met my gaze, and I noticed she had been crying. Do I? You called the cops on them, on Christmas. Kevin's been throwing up blood because of the stress. He's throwing up blood because his liver is failing. The doctor said it's acute gastritis brought on by stress, she protested. Your parents explained everything about how you've been unstable since you went to college, how you joined some weird sobriety cult. I wanted to shout. Even here, with Kevin dying in front of us, my parents' narrative prevailed. Benji told me Kevin's been going to AA meetings. Alexandra's face turned white. That's not... He wouldn't. 3 months, I said. He's been trying to get sober. Ask him when he wakes up. Get out. Her voice was soft but forceful. Get out before I call security. I left, but not before photographing Kevin's chart hanging on the door. The doctor's notes mentioned increased liver enzymes and probable cirrhosis, and suggested additional testing. Nothing about gastritis. In the parking garage, I sat in my car and finally allowed myself to cry. Everything was falling apart quicker than I could handle. My family had turned against me, my finances were ruined, and my brother was dying while everyone blamed me. My telephone rang. Maris. I heard what happened, she stated without elaborating. Mom saw your mom's Facebook post. Jess, I believe you, she interjected. I know what it's like when parents flip the script. But listen, you need to be careful. My dad called your dad after he saw the post. They were on the phone for an hour. My stomach sank. What did they talk about? I don't know, but I heard my dad mention something about coordinating stories and protecting family traditions. They're planning something. After we hung up, I drove to the only location I could think of, the 24-hour gym where I prepare for marathons. Physical weariness has always been my means of escaping and processing trauma. I ran on the treadmill until my legs screamed, attempting to escape the reality of my circumstances. Around 3 a.m., my phone vibrated with an email from my college roommate. The subject line made my heart drop. I'm worried about you. She forwarded a message from my mother, who had written a 3-page letter concerning my declining mental health, complete with made-up occurrences and warped versions of true events. Mom claimed I was drinking heavily at school, that I joined a cult-like sobriety group that urged members to cut off contact with their families, and that I had become paranoid and delusional. The worst part was how convincing she made it sound. Every untruth was coded in just enough truth to appear credible. Yes, I attended a sober support group, but it was not a cult. Yes, I have been estranged from my family, but not because I was unstable. I prepared a thoughtful answer to my roommate, including screenshots of my parents drinking, images from social media, proof of Kevin's hospital trips, and a link to an essay about familial alcoholism and gaslighting. But even as I pushed submit, I wondered if it was enough. The following morning, I awoke in my car in the gym parking lot. My phone had blown up overnight with 17 missed calls from various relatives and 43 text messages, each more accusatory than the previous. Only one message stuck out. It came from Dr. Chen, a doctor who lived next door to my parents. I saw what happened last night. If you need a medical professional to verify your injuries, I'm willing to help. Your parents have been a danger to themselves and others for years. Hope flared in my chest. Finally, someone who could corroborate my account. I replied right back, agreeing to meet her at a coffee shop near the hospital. Dr. Chen appeared exhausted when she arrived, still wearing her scrubs from the night shift. I've been debating whether to get involved, she admitted, clutching her coffee cup. But when I saw them dragging Kevin to the car last month after he collapsed in the driveway and they refused to let me help, I couldn't stay silent anymore. She brought out her phone and showed me footage she had taken with her security camera. My folks have been pummeled on numerous occasions. Driving. Kevin was taken into the house unconscious. Even a video of my father threatening a delivery man who commented on his drinking. I've been documenting things for 2 years, she told me. I kept thinking someone else would report it, but everyone just enables them. The whole neighborhood treats it like a joke. We spent an hour reviewing her evidence. She even kept a thorough list of incident dates and times. It was incriminating information, if anyone would listen. The problem, she informed me, is that your parents have connections everywhere. The sheriff, the mayor, half the city council. They've spent decades building relationships lubricated by alcohol and money. My phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. This is Benji. Can't use my regular phone. Your parents just came to the bar. They're meeting with 5 other families. I heard them mention unified front and protecting our way of life. Be careful. Dr. Chen read the message over my shoulder. 5 families, I announced. I knew precisely who they were referring to. The Johnsons, Patterns, Williamses, Garcias, and Thompsons. All families with children around Kevin's and my age. All families who hosted their own training nights. All families have secrets to keep. They're circling the wagons, I told them. Dr. Chen's demeanor was dismal. You've threatened more than just your parents. You've threatened an entire culture of normalized alcoholism. My phone dialed. Kevin's number. I responded promptly. You need to stop. His voice was faint and raspy. Whatever you're doing, just stop. Kevin, you're in the hospital with liver failure. I'm fine. The doctors overreacted. Mom and Dad explained everything. I've just been stressed about the baby. Kevin, please. Benji told me about the AA meetings. Silence. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. You're confused. Mom's right. You need help. They got to you. No one got to me. I'm just tired of you causing drama. If you really cared about me, you'd apologize and come home. The call went dead. I stared at the phone, feeling as if I had been punched. Even as he lay dying in a hospital bed, Kevin was unable to break free. Dr. Chen gently placed his hand on my arm. Addiction isn't just physical. The psychological chains are often stronger. What do? Everyone thinks I'm crazy. My own brother won't support me. You survive, she stated simply. You document everything, and you wait for the truth to come out. It always does, eventually. But I wasn't certain I could wait. My education fund was depleted. My family had turned the entire neighborhood against me, and Kevin was becoming ill by the day while everyone pretended everything was fine. I spent the remainder of the day attempting to recover what I could. My manager at the college bookstore agreed to offer me additional hours when I returned. My academic advisor assisted me in applying for emergency financial aid. The Sober Support Organization launched a GoFundMe campaign that raised $500 inside the first hour. However, for every stride forward, my parents pulled me back 2 steps. Mom called my employer and informed my management that I was mentally unstable and perhaps violent. Dad contacted my teachers expressing concern about my mental health and recommending I take a medical leave. That evening, the pivotal moment arrived. I was at a poor motel, the only location I could afford with my remaining funds, when the cops knocked on my door. 2 officers that I didn't recognize stood outside. We need you to come with us, the older one explained. Your parents have filed for an emergency psychiatric hold. They're concerned you might harm yourself or others. I felt the ground shift beneath me. I'm not suicidal. I'm not dangerous. They're lying. Ma'am, we have statements from multiple family members and community members expressing concern about your behavior. You called 911 making false accusations. You've been harassing your hospitalized brother, and your parents say you've been making threats. None of that is true. But it didn't matter. The paperwork was in order, and it was signed by a judge who, it turned out, was a member of my parents' bowling league. I was handcuffed and placed in the back of the police car, where I could see the motel shrink in the rear window. The psychiatric facility was 1 hour away. During intake, I attempted to explain what was actually going on, but the more I talked about my parents shoving alcohol down my throat and the community plot to quiet me, the more insane I sounded. The intake nurse said, "Have you been taking any substances?" Number, I'm sober. I've been sober for 2 years. Your family says you've been drinking heavily. They're lying. She made a note. Everything I said was twisted. My marathon training developed into obsessive exercise behavior. My work with the sober support group turned into cult involvement. My documentation of Kevin's sickness became obsession and stalking. I was put in a sterile room with another patient who spent the entire night chatting to unseen persons. No phone. There was no way to reach anyone who could verify my story. Only me and the dawning understanding that my parents had won this round. The following morning, a psychiatrist interviewed me. Dr. Patel was young, presumably just out of residency, and he appeared to listen. I carefully stated everything, keeping to facts and avoiding anything that could seem crazy. Your parents have provided quite a bit of documentation, he continued, scrolling through a huge file, including diary entries where you express hatred towards them. From when I was 15, every teenager writes stuff like that. They also have videos of you pretending to be intoxicated at family gatherings. My heart fell. The Oscar-worthy performances I had given to fit in were now used against me. I was pretending so they'd leave me alone about not drinking. So you were being deceptive. Every truth I shared sounded like a symptom. Every explanation seemed like an excuse. I was stuck in a web spun by my family, and the more I struggled, the more entangled I became. There's someone who can verify my story, I said anxiously. Dr. Chen, our neighbor. She has security footage. Dr. Patel made a note. We'll look into that. But I could see by his expression that he had already made up his mind. I was simply another patient with family troubles, potentially having a breakdown, and clearly in need of care. The 72-hour hold seemed like 72 years. There is no news from the outside world. I had no idea if Kevin was okay, if my college was safe, or if anyone was fighting for me. Just group therapy sessions where I had to pretend to accept my problems to avoid being obstinate. On the third day, just as I was beginning to worry I'd be confined there eternally, Dr. Patel summoned me to his office. His expression was odd, perplexed, and possibly even apprehensive. We spoke with Dr. Chen, he stated. She provided some interesting footage. We also received calls from several members of your college support group, your academic advisor, and your employer. Their version of events differs significantly from your family's. Relief washed over me. So you believe me? I believe there's more to the situation than initially presented. However, your parents remain your medical proxy since you're on their insurance. They're insisting on continued treatment. They can't keep me here if I'm not a danger to myself or others. But they can make things difficult. I'm going to recommend discharge, but I strongly suggest you have a plan in place somewhere safe to stay, continued therapy, and distance from the conflict. He was correct. I couldn't return to the motel where my parents knew I was staying. I could not go to the hospital. They'd undoubtedly received a restraining order by now. I was basically homeless, broke, and alone. But I was free. Dr. Patel arranged for a social worker to drive me back into town. Throughout the ride, she handed me my phone, which had been kept throughout my intake. The screen displayed communications from the previous 3 days. Most of them were from my parents' flying monkeys, telling me to seek assistance, to stop causing harm to my family, and to consider what I was doing with Kevin. But sprinkled among them were lifelines. Maris. Your parents tried to convince my father to believe you were unstable as a child. He refused. Stay strong. My marathon coach. Your position on the team is certain. Do not let them break you. Benji. Kevin's been asking for you. He's scared. And most surprisingly, a message from David. I'm sorry. You were right. Kevin told me everything. He needs you. My social worker dropped me off at the hospital. I virtually rushed into Kevin's room, scared of what I could discover. The ICU was a different world than the regular ward. Quieter, more serious, and filled with the steady beep of life-saving machinery. Kevin was barely awake. Tubes went everywhere, including oxygen, IVs, and monitoring devices. His skin was the color of old paper, and his eyes were hazy, unfocused. You came, he muttered. Of course I came. Mom and Dad, they brought me beer yesterday. Said it would make me feel better. Tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. I could not say no. I never can. Kevin, I am dying. The statements came out as factual. The doctors won't say it, but I can feel it. My body's shutting down. I clasped his hand, mindful of the fourth. We'll get you on the transplant list. There's still hope. Mom and Dad won't consent. They say I just need to tough it out, that our family doesn't believe in taking parts from dead people. The savagery stole my breath away. They would rather see their son die than accept that a family tradition had ruined his liver. David sat in a corner, her cheeks swollen from sobbing. I tried to talk to them. They said, if I keep pushing, they'll make sure I'm declared an unfit mother. They can't do that. Can't they? Look what they did to you. 3 days in a psych ward because you told the truth. She was correct. My parents had demonstrated that they would annihilate anyone who challenged their story. Even their own children, and particularly their own children. A nurse entered to check Kevin's vital signs. She looked at the readings and grimaced. His numbers aren't good. Has the family made a decision about the transplant evaluation? They're still thinking, Kevin remarked hesitantly. The nurse's look indicated that everything was running out. Kevin turned to me once she had left. I need you to do something. In my apartment, there's a box under the bed. Everything's in there, recordings from AA meetings, journal entries, medical records I've been hiding. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me. His grip tightened with unexpected vigor. Promise you'll use it. Don't let them do to others what they did to us. I vowed, despite my broken heart. My older brother, who once carried me on his shoulders and showed me how to ride a bike, was preparing for an unnecessary death. I left the hospital as visiting hours ended, holding Kevin's apartment key in my palm. The weight of his faith was heavier than anything I'd ever held. As I drove through the dark neighborhoods, I understood it was no longer only about saving Kevin. It was about stopping a cycle that had devastated generations of our family. And if my parents desired war, they were going to get it. I stood outside Kevin's apartment building, his key chilly in my hand. The December wind sliced through my torn state hoodie as I climbed the stairs to the 3rd level. Inside, the air smelt of sour beer and desperation. Empty bottles covered every surface. I located the box right where he said it would be. My hands trembled when I opened it. A thick stack of 3-month-old notebook entries, each chronicling his attempts to quit, and ending with, Mom and Dad found out, or, they showed up at the meeting. He had withheld medical documents from our parents, which indicated liver enzyme levels that would have terrified any doctor, and at the bottom, a USB drive titled Insurance. I plugged it in Kevin's laptop. Kevin covertly recorded our parents putting alcohol on him when he refused. Mom poured alcohol into his orange juice for breakfast. His father threatened to kick him out if he went to rehab and disgrace the family. The final video was from last week when Kevin begged them to let him get help. Dad responded by shattering Kevin's AA chips with a hammer. David, my phone buzzed. Kevin's asking for you. Hurry back. At the hospital, I discovered mayhem. Mom and Dad were in Kevin's room with their lawyer, paperwork laid out on his bed. Kevin appeared considerably worse than before as his breathing labored. Sign here, Mom said, pressing the pen into Kevin's quivering fingers. Power of attorney. For all your medical decisions. Stop! I barged through the door. Dad's face turned purple. Security! This woman has a restraining order. But I was already at Kevin's bedside, throwing the papers aside. Kevin, don't sign anything. I have your videos and everything you documented. Mom reached for the USB disk in my hand, but David came in between us. I called them, she told me. I couldn't let them do this anymore. 2 security officers emerged, as did Dr. Chen, who had been waiting in the hallway. I'm this patient's physician, she lied with ease. Everyone out, except the immediate family. We are an immediate family, Dad growled. The patient has requested that only his sister remain, Dr. Chen added while reviewing Kevin's paperwork. His condition is critical. Please respect his wishes. Uncle Mike began to argue, but Dr. Chen stopped him. Sir, this is a medical emergency. Leave now, or I'll have security escort you out. Mom yelled at me before they went. This isn't over. When we were alone, Kevin gripped my hand hesitantly. Play the videos. For the doctors. For everyone. Dr. Chen contacted the hospital's patient advocate and on-call psychiatrist. We watched Kevin's documentary together. The psychiatrist's face became progressively dismal. "This is clear evidence of abuse," she stated. "We need to contact Adult Protective Services immediately." "And the transplant evaluation?" I inquired. "We'll expedite it. With proper documentation of forced alcohol consumption, he could qualify despite the addiction." Kevin's eyes lit up with hope for the first time in years. But I knew our parents would not give up lightly. Within an hour, the hospital administrator arrived, accompanied by Uncle Mike and a judge, another golf buddy of Dad's. "We have a court order," the administrator explained sheepishly. "The parents retain medical decision-making authority." "Based on what?" Dr. Chen insisted. "Based on their daughter being mentally unstable and manipulating their son," the tribunal's judge stated. "I've seen the documentation." I grabbed out my phone and began recording. "Your Honor, are you aware that you've been playing golf with my father for 15 years? That you attended his birthday party last month, where he served alcohol to minors?" The judge's face reddened. "Young lady, you're bordering on contempt." "I'm bordering on the truth," I replied. "How much has my father paid for your campaign contributions?" Uncle Mike snatched my phone, but the video had already been uploaded to the cloud. The hospital administrator appeared uncomfortable. "Perhaps we should review this matter more thoroughly." That's when Maris's father entered. My heart fell until I noticed his expression, determined but not menacing. "I'm here to provide testimony," he stated, "about what really happened when my daughter called CPS years ago, about how these families coordinate to silence their children." Following him were 3 additional parents from the other training night families, but they were not present to support my parents. They came here to confess. "My son is in rehab," Mrs. Johnson explained quietly. "Has been 6 months. I couldn't say anything because..." She looked at my parents, who had just stormed back in. "Because we all agreed," Mr. Peters said, "to protect the tradition. But my daughter tried to call herself last year. She's 15 inches. The room erupted. Dad raged about disloyalty and family loyalty. Mom said that they were all liars, jealous of our close-knit family. Uncle Mike threatened litigation against everyone, but the dam had cracked. Mrs. Garcia took out her phone and showed images of injuries on her son's arms from when he refused to drink. Mr. Thompson admitted to surreptitiously attending Al-Anon sessions, fearing his wife would find out. The judge hurriedly excused himself after realizing the gravity of the situation. The administrator requested more security and social services. During the pandemonium, I observed Kevin's monitor begin to alarm. His breathing became more laborious, and his skin turned grayish. "He needs the transplant list right now," Dr. Chen stated urgently. "We're running out of time." "I consent," I replied. "As his sister, you have no authority," Uncle Mike interjected. "Actually, she does," David said, stepping forward with a document. "Kevin and I got married yesterday, in the hospital chapel, and I'm designating her as our medical proxy." Mom's cry could definitely be heard 3 floors below. "You manipulative little..." "Enough," said the psychiatrist, standing up. "I'm placing a psychiatric hold on both. Parents for evaluation. Their behavior is erratic and potentially dangerous." "You can't do that," Dad charged at her, but security intervened. As my parents were led out, still yelling about lawsuits and family betrayal, I noticed something shatter in their eyes, the understanding that their power was finally, completely gone. The following hours blurred together. Kevin was sent to the transplant list as a status 1, the highest priority. The other families gave police testimonies detailing years of forced alcohol consumption and child abuse. Adult Protective Services launched investigations into all 5 families. I sat beside Kevin's bed, holding his hand while machines kept him alive. David sat on the opposite side, her hand protectively covering her tummy. "I'm sorry," Kevin mumbled, "for not standing up to them, for letting you fight alone." "Don't," I replied. "Just focus on getting better." "The baby," he explained to David. "Promise me. No alcohol. Ever." "Never," she insisted. "We're breaking the cycle." Dr. Chen arrived with news. We found a match, a liver. Surgery is in 2 hours. Kevin squeezed my hand. If I don't make it, you will. But if I don't, use everything. The videos, the journals. Don't let them hurt anyone else. 2 hours later, they wheeled him into surgery. David and I waited in the waiting room, surrounded by the remnants of our family. My phone had been buzzing nonstop. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone is choosing sides. The neighborhood Facebook page had erupted with debates about family values against kids' safety. Benji messaged, "Your parents just got banned from the bar. Finally, proud of you." Maris entered with coffee and sat next to me. "My dad is filing charges," she stated. "For what happened when I was 15, others are too." "It's destroying everything," I explained. "No," she replied. "It's revealing what was already destroyed." 8 hours later, the surgeon emerged. The transplant was successful. He's stable. David and I tumbled on one another, sobbing. Kevin would live. He would meet his daughter. He would have a second opportunity. But the fight was not done. The legal skirmishes became more intense over the next few days, while Kevin recovered. When my parents were freed from their psychiatric detention, they recruited the best lawyers money could buy. They sued the hospital, the physicians, myself, David, and even the other families who had spoken up. I spent my days commuting between Kevin's bedside and legal appointments. The university bookstore had to let me go because I had missed too much work. My lecturers assigned incomplete grades. My marathon training has come to an end completely. However, things changed gradually. The police inquiry revealed years of recorded maltreatment in all 5 homes. The district attorney, who was not a member of my parents' golf network, pursued criminal charges. Child Protective Services took 3 younger siblings from their homes. Kevin improved on a daily basis. The jaundice on his skin faded. His hands stopped shaking. For the first time since he was 10, he was truly sober. "I want to go to rehab," he said to me one morning. "After I'm released, 90 days. Learn how to live without it. Mom and Dad will, I don't care what they do anymore." His voice was more powerful than I had heard in years. "I'm done living for their approval." David had documented everything for their daughter. "So she knows," she explained. "So she understands why we don't see your grandparents." The trials started 3 months later. I testified for several hours about training nights, forced consumption, and the Christmas assault. Kevin testified on video from rehab. The other families' children shared their stories. My parents' response was predictable. We were ungrateful children who shattered a treasured family tradition. But the evidence was overwhelming. The videos, medical records, the witnesses. They were convicted of several counts of child endangerment and assault. The penalty was for 2 years. But there was something. The true penalty was the devastation of their reputation, social network, and everything they had built on the foundation of booze and control. I returned to Oregon State in the fall. My financial aid arrived, and I worked 3 jobs to fund the remainder. The sober support group welcomed me back with open arms. Kevin graduated from rehab and began attending regular AA meetings. He acquired a job at a treatment center and used his story to help others. David gave birth to a healthy daughter, Isla, who would never experience the taste of alcohol shoved down her throat. The 5 families scattered. Some sought assistance. Others presumably moved to start their destructive customs somewhere else. The neighborhood felt different, quieter, as if a communal hangover had finally subsided. I completed my marathon that spring. My time was dreadful. I had lost months of training. But I crossed the finish line. Maris cheered on the sidelines. Kevin couldn't make it. He was presenting at an AA convention, but he texted, "Proud of you. Mom and Dad saw your race announcement in the paper. They're furious you're flaunting your lifestyle." Perfect. We did not speak with our parents after their discharge. They relocated 2 towns away, began attending a new church, and informed everyone that their children had abandoned them for no reason. I occasionally hear through the grapevine about their current narrative. We were drug addicts who had unjustly accused them, or ungrateful children who have ruined their life for money. But Kevin was alive. Isla was healthy. The cycle was broken. On the 2-year anniversary of that Christmas night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Kevin holding Isla during her second birthday party. Sober, smiling, alive. The message reads, "Thank you for fighting when I couldn't. K." I stared at the photograph for a long time. We had lost our parents, our extended family, our childhood home, our heritage. But Kevin remained sober. Isla would grow up safely. The generational curse came to an end with us. I typed back, "Worth it." And it was. Every lost relationship, every judicial struggle, every sleepless night. Kevin was alive and free. Because Isla would never sit at the kitchen table at the age of 10, learning to drink shots as her parents cheered. The cycle was broken, the price was everything, and I paid, again. My mother-in-law ruined my wedding moment. She spilled wine on my dress right before the ceremony, all with a fake, calculated smile. So, where do I even start with this mess? My life feels like a reality show gone wrong. You know, the kind where the protagonist keeps tripping over her own feet. However, in my case, my feet are entangled in a whole lot of family drama. Okay, let me back up and set the scenario. I am Ava, 36, and I am married to Liam, the most amazing, frustrating, and completely loyal man in the world. Is there a catch? Liam is a soldier. He is now deployed. Again. And this time, it seems like forever. The quiet in between times is crucial, as it can feel like a giant tomb. Liam is brave and determined, and I admire him beyond words. The other day, he unexpectedly called, offering a brief moment of connection before suggesting I connect with his mother, Meredith. I was stunned. "What are you talking about?" My voice was definitely sharper than I intended when I asked. He groaned, exhausted. "Meredith hasn't been herself since Dad's death. Her loneliness is extreme." "For real? I am. We've all struggled with this deployment's isolation." Liam's words hit me hard. This deployment has been tough, and I miss him so much it hurts. But then he proposed that Meredith and I might support each other more and spend time together. I was initially skeptical. Meredith and I? Close. We've always had a polite, distant, frigid relationship. But then I saw his point. We're both lonely and clutching on Liam. Considering becoming a buddy-buddy with my mother-in-law could help us both feel less alone. Sharing simple things could help us feel less alone. I'm considering reaching out to her, though it's scary. "Oh honey, you won't believe what happened," I said Liam, desperately attempting to lighten the mood. Meredith was all I could think of. Our relationship has been tight since the wedding. I call it the wine incident. It started on my wedding day. Can you fathom the burden of planning everything? The endless matching, military-style seating charts, and flowers that threatened to bankrupt me. I struggled to be calm and not lose it. Knowing I was close. I tried to absorb those peaceful minutes before the wedding, you know? To realize I was marrying my dream man. Later, Meredith, my beautiful mother-in-law, decided to appear. She's good at pressing my buttons, very similar to a superpower. That day, it was obvious. Her plan was obvious. She was determined to cause trouble. Everything was trivial and pointless. As I prepared to feel calm and excited, Meredith, with a mischievous smile, spilled an entire glass of red wine on my wedding dress. My white wedding dress. Can you imagine? She stained this enormous crimson stain over immaculate white silk. My existence felt like a slow-motion horror film. She blamed it on clumsy hands and being flustered because her baby boy was getting married, as if that made it okay. It was dreadful. My heart broke. It's still bothering me. The whole event felt planned. "Honey, you wouldn't believe what happened." I just knew she did it on purpose. Her sly eye sparkle revealed her entirely. It was intentional, I'm sure. After that, everything changed. It was like someone had ripped a hole in our relationship, revealing all this tension I hadn't noticed before. It was simple and comfy. Now every time we saw each other was dreadful. Passive-aggressive whispers and barely veiled jabs were taxing. What were once light-hearted talks became tense, uncomfortable encounters full of underlying hatred. It was like walking on eggshells. I became exhausted and drained by the incessant negativity, leading me to withdraw. I felt no urge to resist or stoke the fire. You know how much I value Liam. He spoke about it with such pain that I couldn't ignore it. I had to change things. It hurt, but I had to mend it. Part of me didn't want to, so it was hard. It ached so fresh and raw. I tried because Liam was hurting. I couldn't let things stay broken, especially because his feelings were involved, even if it meant putting myself through it again. A leap of faith, honestly. Though I wasn't sure it would work, I owed it to him and maybe even myself. "You won't believe this, honey." He told me about his intense training, weariness, and dread in the army. My heart hurt for him. He'd been through so much, and I wanted to help him in any way I could. It seemed like my duty. After years apart, I hoped Meredith had matured. I said, "Look, if it means that much to you, I'm definitely willing to try. I believe in supporting the people I care about, you know?" He smiled. "That's my girl. I know it might be tricky, given everything that happened before, but maybe we'll find we have more in common than we remember." "Yes. I'll go into it with an open mind, I promise." But I added, feeling irritated, "If Meredith tries any of her wine-throwing shenanigans again, I'm going to have a serious conversation with her. Absolutely no more sabotage. I'm not putting up with that again." His chest rumbled as he laughed. "Now, let's do this for us, me, and Meredith," he added, squeezing my hand. "Thanks, Ava." A little thank you meant everything. It felt fantastic to help him and leave my comfort zone. Naturally, I have reservations, but seeing how much it means to him makes it all worthwhile. I hope, maybe even pray, this time will be different. Cross your fingers. I told him, I'll make it right when I get back, truly meaning it. That weighty talk with Liam about his mother was heartfelt. It made me realize I needed to contact Meredith, despite my fear. Our past wasn't exactly a series of memorable events. I tried for Liam and our family. Braced, sent the message. "Meredith, Liam mentioned you might like to get together sometime. Let me know if you're interested." Her response confirmed my fears. That passive-aggressive tone and well-crafted reply. Ava, how kind of you. Liam did tell me to strive to be better." That single word hung in the air like a terrible stench. It felt like a cold rain on a hopeful summer day. Still, we started spending time together. It was excruciating at first. The tension was palpable, you could practically taste it. Every interaction was a minefield. Slowly, though, things shifted. We started to find common ground, remembering old family stories, laughing about silly things we did as kids. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but it was bearable. The old Meredith, whom I knew well, resurfaced. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to others, with snide remarks and subtly undermining observations. I felt alone in noticing it, constantly on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It felt like one of those over-the-top high school movies, but it was my life, and it was infuriating. I felt like she was doing it on purpose, and it was slowly driving me mad. This awful situation lasted months, and my frustration kept growing. I was tired of playing the nice girl, pretending everything was fine, and smiling when inside I was screaming. The forced smiles and fake pleasantries felt hollow. I couldn't ignore the elephant in the room any longer, no matter how much I dreaded the confrontation. I finally had the courage to talk to Meredith one afternoon at her apartment, sipping tea that ironically tasted bitter, matching my mood. My heart was pounding like a drum solo as I tried to find the right words. It felt like forever before I could start. I frantically exclaimed, "Meredith, I can't pretend anymore. I thought things were getting better, but these repeated digs and subtle barbs hurt me." She looked at me with her usual innocent expression, that perfect little mask of, "I have no idea what you're talking about." But this time, I wasn't buying it. The carefully constructed facade felt flimsy and transparent, almost laughable. I knew I'd reached my limit and couldn't stomach it anymore. I knew this talk, however difficult, had to happen to get this off my chest, regardless of the outcome. The quiet after I spoke felt heavy with unspoken words and tension. I took a big breath, annoyed, but then I was determined. I said, "You understand. I'm exhausted from pretending. If we want to solve this, we must discuss it honestly." The situation quickly escalated, with yelling and increasing tension. I half expected Mrs. Gable next door to call the police. I realized how much resentment had built up during all that shouting. It wasn't just about that stupid spilled wine on my wedding dress. That was just the straw that broke the camel's back. It was years of little things, miscommunications, and things left unsaid. Of course, we stopped shouting, but the silence was suffocating. Everything seemed heavy, weighed down by what we'd said. I left Meredith that day feeling exhausted, like someone had sucked all my energy out of me, but I also felt free. It was like shedding a tremendous weight I'd been carrying for so long. My mother-in-law and I had a messy, raw emotional outburst that left me feeling jumbled and relieved. However, a deep sadness followed, leaving me clear-headed. Some hurts are too deep for tea and polite chit-chat to fix. After that screaming match, I sat in the living room, exhausted and drained. All that constant tension, the endless little arguments, it felt like the walls of this huge house were closing in, suffocating me with memories and unresolved issues. The days turned into a blur, and this crushing loneliness settled in everywhere. Liam's still deployed, miles and miles away, and the house feels even more desolate without him. It's a constant painful reminder of how much I miss him and how far we are apart. I'm exhausted from this constant emotional seesaw, so I started thinking about moving. I need a fresh start. It's not a decision yet, but the thought feels comforting, like an escape from this suffocating feeling. Moving to a smaller house felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Yes, the money was a perk, but I genuinely wanted a simpler, snug, calm atmosphere. You know how it's been lately? I remember bringing it up with Liam on one of our video chats and being shocked how readily he appeared to agree. At that point, I'd only talked about the finances and how much easier it would be. I didn't want to bother him with the turmoil. He added, "Honey, I can't shake this feeling that there's more to this," looking at me attentively like he was seeing through me. Another fight with Meredith? Does this move involve her? I breathed a tremendous sigh of relief and frustration, relieved that I didn't have to pretend and frustrated that I'd even had to fake it. Yeah, I informed him. It's partly because of her, Liam. I tried. I really did. I gave everything. But I stopped, feeling like a failure. Despite my efforts, it seemed like hauling a boulder uphill, tiring, and ultimately pointless. I need a fresh start, a room to breathe, since she's so combative. Every conversation feels like walking on eggshells, a perpetual war. I'm exhausted. God bless Liam, he understood. He nodded with his kind, empathic nod on the video conversation and said he knew I tried so hard. He replied, "Ava, if it's causing you this much stress, you need to put yourself first." That was a huge relief. Why does his mother dislike me? I don't understand. He claimed trying to talk to her is like hitting a brick wall. Obviously, he loves me. He concluded, if moving is what it takes to make you happy and give us some peace, then let's do it. Hearing those words lifted a big burden. Not running away, but choosing to create a space where we could breathe. It was great to know he didn't blame me and understood. It wasn't just his support, but his words. His point wasn't to lecture or guilt me, it was genuine understanding that makes you feel recognized and valued. I was encouraged that prioritizing my well-being was necessary, not selfish. I needed a location where I could thrive, not merely exist, without anxiety. That conversation changed me. Talking to him gave me strength and purpose. Knowing I had his unconditional love and support encouraged me to face whatever came next. Moving wasn't a panacea, but it was a necessary step toward inner peace. Looking around our old living room, I dreamed of a new, warm environment without bad memories or unsaid tensions. I needed that leap of faith to create a secure area where Liam and I could be ourselves, away from all the unpleasantness in our life, especially with Meredith. 3 months later, I'm situated in my new apartment. So stylish, so me. Leaving that old place with its heavy, lingering unhappiness felt like shedding skin. I'll never forget this amazing feeling. My 36th birthday was approaching, and I was excited. For my first birthday in my new house, I wanted it to be special. I usually left the apartment the night before to let my friends and family decorate as a surprise. But this year was different. My place was too small for a huge celebration. Instead, my closest friends were already celebrating early before our flight tomorrow, creating an intimate and fitting atmosphere for this new chapter. That brought calm joy, you know? Peaceful satisfaction in this quieter, more personal celebration. I wouldn't exchange this sensation. It seemed fitting to celebrate a new beginning calmly and joyfully. It was great for marking this new period of my life, which finally felt mine. Imagine, we were jammed into my apartment, excited for our excursion. The air was full of laughter and pre-vacation enthusiasm. Everyone was excited. Then, bam! The phone vibrated. Text from Meredith. Something about calling her quickly was urgent. My gut flipped. I couldn't ignore it. It seemed unusual to go from excitement to anxiety. I excused myself, claiming to retrieve something from my room, my heart racing. Closing the door, I called her. My phone holding hand shook. I said, "Meredith, what's wrong?" She had a biting voice. It punched me. She blasted me. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She shouted about my behavior and how she'd had enough. Wow, I was shocked. I mumbled, "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" I couldn't believe she was talking to me. I was shocked and hurt. It hurt a lot. The pre-trip enthusiasm was gone, replaced with a terrible knot in my gut and growing bewilderment and hurt. What happened to make her behave that way puzzled me. It was so unlike her. I needed to process this badly. I needed a minute, just to breathe and figure out what to do next. What my problem seriously is that what this is all about? I couldn't believe her. It felt like she was attempting to divide me and my son. She sneered, "You're upset because I told him the truth." It was ridiculous. I asked, "What's up, Meredith?" "You're being unreasonable. I don't have the energy for this, and I'm exhausted dealing with your negativity. Your unhappiness isn't my concern. Just leave me alone. I need to enjoy this birthday weekend." She then dropped this unbelievable gut-wrenching bomb. She spoke with a mix of resentment and elation. "You won't enjoy your birthday this year. I warned you, so consider it a preemptive strike." My pulse raced against my ribs as I mumbled what on earth you were talking about, perplexed and terrified. The sheer audacity of it all was amazing. Was she actually this malicious? She smiled. A wicked, twisted look that sent shivers down my spine. So serene, her voice was almost unsettling. "After not receiving an invitation, I felt underappreciated, so I decided to make your birthday truly memorable. I couldn't wait any longer, so I went to your house and destroyed everything. The decorations, the beautiful new furniture, everything." Shattered, the words hung in the air heavy and suffocating. A wave of nausea hit me. It was like a physical blow to my birthday, marred by her invasion of my privacy and malicious cruelty. Looking back, I should thank Meredith for their terrible decorating this year. It looked like a stranger had moved in. It was that horrible that when she called and told me what she'd done, my jaw dropped. Her grin was almost audible over the phone. I was speechless trying to picture it all, but she blurted out, "Surprise, happy birthday, Ava. Hope you're having a blast." And that's when I started laughing. It was such a shock that the absurdity of the whole situation hit me, and I couldn't stop. I laughed so hard it threw her, yet I could hear her perplexity. She was serious and sure she'd offended me. She exclaimed, "Why are you laughing? You should be sobbing." I finally caught my breath to respond. "Meredith, you're such a goofball. You think you're so clever. You stunned me with your unexpected birthday gift, which was probably the greatest I could have wished for. Who needs a nicely adorned house when you can get this reaction right? It makes me laugh just thinking about it. The most amazing, crazy, outrageous surprise was precisely what I needed." "Meredith, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I screamed, 'You're despicable. Absolutely despicable.' I couldn't get over it. She was so easygoing at first. What's that like?" "It was nothing. I told her it wasn't my house. Meredith, did you think?" Wow, I was shocked. Totally speechless. It felt weird, like I was witnessing a crazy movie. I told her carefully as much as I could. I relocated 3 months ago and could hear her brain short-circuiting. Deafening silence followed. Then I realized how astonished she must have been. Sheriff Liam and his family now live in the house she broke into, making everything worse. We've only met twice, but you could tell he's the loveliest dude. You could tell he worked hard to prepare his kids. Just thinking about him and his family made my gut clench. It seemed so terrible. I think Meredith's initial amazement was turning into pure panic. I could hear her unsteady, strained voice. Like seeing a dam break. The weight of her actions was falling on her. It wasn't simply a house or vandalism. Her goal was the sheriff's home, the new sheriff who was just moving in with his family. Every trembling syllable I heard was carved with the understanding of her massive error and how devastating the ramifications could be. I heard her take a sudden, shaky breath. She was starting to realize how much danger she'd gotten herself into. The terror in her voice was almost palpable. "Oh my God. Ava?" she muttered, her voice cracking. The words hung in the air heavy with desperate panic. An odd laugh came to me. Kicked out for refusing the family business, I lived in my car, built software for small businesses, and turned it into my own company. "What do you want to do?" The sound of my father's voice shook the designer light fittings in our immaculate suburban kitchen. His face turned to a frightening purple, already red from his third scotch of the evening. I repeated, attempting to sound steady, that I want to launch a software company. I've created a prototype already. This platform is beneficial to small enterprises. He slammed his glass flat and said, "Absolutely not. We didn't pay for your Stanford degree so you could waste your life on some pipe dream. You're joining the family business?" End of discussion. I looked to my mom for encouragement. She remained motionless at our marble island, keeping her customary cautious distance from confrontation. It gleamed on her wrist, the diamond tennis bracelet I'd given her for Christmas, purchased with my earnings from covert freelance coding assignments. "Mom," I attempted. You've seen how many small businesses are struggling with digital transformation. My platform could really help. She groaned and looked at her manicure. Ethan, she said. Your father's right. This tech obsession of yours, it's not practical. Sterling Enterprises needs you. The company's been in the family for 3 generations. In reality, they meant that our family's industrial supply company, Sterling Enterprises, was failing. They needed my programming expertise to update their antiquated systems so they could compete in a market that was digitizing quickly. But my aspirations were loftier. When I said, I'm not asking for money, I have savings, I just need some time. My dad said, I'll laugh. You want time to play with computers while real businesses are at stake? While your sister is already making partner at her law firm? Yes, Claire, my ideal elder sister. The benchmark by which all of my shortcomings were evaluated was Harvard Law, the youngest partner in her firm's history, and she was married to a physician. I insisted, this isn't playing. I've already got interest from potential clients. Small businesses need affordable software solutions, and the big tech companies aren't serving them. My platform was chilled by my father. Just inches from my head, the glass broke against the wall. My father yelled, enough, as liquor trickled down the pricey wall covering. You have a choice, join Sterling Enterprises on Monday or get out. See how long you last without our support. Despite flinching at the sound, my mother remained silent. She didn't. I glanced at both of them, my mother averting my gaze, my father shaking with anger. The choice I made would alter everything. Remarkably composed, I got up and said, I choose out. What, I'm leaving? Good luck modernizing Sterling Enterprises without me. You ungrateful. I was on my way upstairs when my father began to approach me. This was a moment I had anticipated. Essentials like a laptop, a portable hard drive, and 2 changes of clothes were already in my backpack. I had a safety deposit box where I kept my vital paperwork. My parents couldn't access the account where I kept the majority of my savings. My dad yelled up the stairs, you have an hour? Then I want you out of this house. I retrieved my favorite hoodie, my emergency pack, and a final glance at my childhood bedroom. My trophies from coding competitions, science fair prizes, and the framed article about the high school software I created that attracted Stanford's notice were still on the wall. It buzzed on my phone. Finn, my best friend, texted me. Operation Escape still on? Happening now, I responded by typing. Plan B initiated. When I initially made the decision to follow my company goals, Finn and I had simulated this situation months prior. I could stay in his tiny flat above his family's eatery until I was able to support myself. My mother eventually spoke as I was about to leave. Ethan, please be reasonable. Your father only wants what's best. No, I interrupted her. He wants what's best for Sterling Enterprises. There's a difference. I left without turning around. It felt unreal the first night in my automobile. I parked on a quiet street 2 blocks away from my parents' house, far enough away that they wouldn't notice me but close enough to keep a solid connection to their fast Wi-Fi network, which I had set up and secured myself. The familiar rhythm of keyboards drowned out the voice in my head that told me I was making a big mistake as I continued to code on my laptop, which shone in the darkness. When Finn handed me food, he remarked, "You sure about this? Is Mother's incredible pad thai? My couch is still available." I shook my head and showed him my workplace, which included a laptop, a power bank for emergencies, and a mobile hotspot for backup internet. I need to stay mobile for now. Can't risk them finding me and trying to force me back. He looked at my computer screen. What exactly are you building? I displayed the interface of my prototype. I call it Smart Start. It's an all-in-one digital platform for small businesses. Point of sale, inventory management, customer relationships, online presence, everything they need to compete in today's market, but simplified and affordable, like what your dad's company needs. Similar, but designed for smaller businesses that can't afford enterprise solutions. I reflected on all the neighborhood stores I had witnessed struggle and fail due to their inability to adapt to the digital revolution. There's a huge market being ignored by big tech. Finn gave a slow nod. A cash register from the 1990s and paper order tickets were still in use at his family's eatery. How long until it's ready? Basic version, 2 months. I've got most of the core functions working. Just need to polish the interface and add some features. I kept from him the fact that I was also surreptitiously recording every flaw in Sterling Enterprises systems, including every security flaw, inefficiency, and lost chance for technological advancement. I was creating it because I knew they would need it someday, not because I was spiteful. They simply weren't aware of it yet. Life fell into an odd pattern. I would work from several coffee shops over the day, purchasing just enough to warrant using their Wi-Fi and space. I would park close to my parents' house at night and utilize their fast internet to upload code and execute intricate tests. Coffee, protein bars, and leftovers from Finn's family were my main sources of nutrition. I learned which parking lots were safe to sleep in and which ones to avoid, and I took a shower at a cheap gym membership. Although uncomfortable, it served a useful purpose. I could devote all of my attention to creating Smart Start if there were no outside distractions, no incessant criticism from my father, and no passive disappointment from my mother. My sister Claire attempted to step in one weekend. "This is ridiculous, Ethan," she said after finding me at the coffee shop where I usually go. "You're living in your car to prove what? That you can be as stubborn as Dad?" I continued to code without looking up. "I'm building something important. You're throwing away a guaranteed future with the family business." I stated plainly. "The family business is dying. Dad's too proud to admit it. But their systems are ancient. Their processes are inefficient. And their competitors are eating them alive." "Then help fix it," I said, finally looking her in the eye. "That's exactly what I'm doing, just not the way they want." She put a big envelope on my table before departing in frustration. $5,000 in cash was found inside, along with the words, "Don't be an idiot. Come home." I upgraded my coding tools and purchased a better laptop with the money. In the second month, the breakthrough occurred. A local bookshop, a family-run hardware store, and a developing food truck company were among the small businesses who approached me about beta testing Smart Start. They were all having trouble with the same issues that my platform was intended to address. The owner of the bookstore responded, "This is exactly what we need." Following my demonstration of the inventory management system. "QuickBooks is too complicated, and the custom solutions are too expensive. How much would this cost?" I gave her a price that made her smile. It was purposefully less than the going rate in order to encourage word of mouth. I had clients that were paying by the third month. Little sums, but consistent revenue. Enough to rent a little studio apartment, but I didn't include it in the lease so my parents wouldn't find out. Then came the call that made all the difference. The authoritative, business-like voice said, "Is this Ethan Sterling?" "Yes, this is." "Owen Grant from Zenith Ventures. We've been hearing interesting things about your Smart Start platform." My heart stopped beating. One of the nation's most prominent early-stage investors was Zenith Ventures. One of our portfolio companies mentioned your solution. Said, "It's exactly what the small business market needs. Would you be interested in discussing potential investment?" I tightened my hold on my phone as I recalled all the evenings I spent coding in my car, the meals I skipped to gain server time, and the uncertainties and anxieties I had set aside in order to follow this goal. "Yes," I said. "I would definitely be interested." At the time, I had no idea that this talk would start a series of events that would not only confirm my vision but also confront my family's financial failures in a way that neither of us could have anticipated. My father would have approved of the Zenith Ventures office, which was located on the top level of a shiny downtown tower. I tried not to look like someone who had been living in his van 2 months prior, rearranged my one nice suit, and purchased used items for investor meetings. Owen Grant had the easy assurance of someone who had made his wealth in the first boom, and he was younger than I had anticipated, possibly in his early 40s. "Walk me through it again," he urged, pointing to the enormous screen in the conference room that was showing my Smart Start demonstration. I launched the user interface, which had grown as recognizable as my own image. Small businesses are drowning in digital complexity. They need e-commerce, inventory management, customer relationship tools, but existing solutions are either too expensive, too complicated, or too limited. The point of sale, inventory management, customer communications, and even basic analytics were all connected and easy enough for anyone to use, and I showed how a small business owner could set up their complete digital presence in less than an hour. "And this scales?" was Owen's full question. "The architecture is cloud-based, modular. We can add features as businesses grow, integrate with other platforms, but the core stays simple." Slowly, he nodded. "And your current users?" 28 paying customers, all from word of mouth, 0 churn rate. Average user engagement is 4 hours daily. "That's impressive." He displayed a second screen. "My company's incorporation documents. Innovative Solutions LLC, registered 6 months ago." "Yes. All self-funded so far." He looked closely at me. "You're Charles Sterling's son." My heart skipped a beat. "You know my father?" He looked contemplative as he said, "Sterling Enterprises was one of my first investments back in the day, before your father bought out the minority shareholders. They're having trouble adapting to digital markets, I hear." I maintained a neutral expression. I wouldn't know. I'm not involved with Sterling Enterprises. He tapped his iPad, and a fresh document showed up on the screen. Interesting. We'd like to offer you seed funding, $2 million for a 20% stake. I made an effort to hide my trembling hands. $2 million was more money than I ever thought I would have. Owen went on. There's one condition. We want you to expand your focus. Small businesses are good, but mid-sized enterprises need these solutions too. Companies like, say, Sterling Enterprises. And there it was. The trap I dreaded and had been anticipating. You want me to target my family's business? He gave a small smile. I want you to target a market segment that desperately needs modernization. The fact that your father's company might benefit is incidental. I reflected on the numerous evenings I had parked outside my folks' house, utilizing their Wi-Fi to construct something they rejected. Regarding my mother's quiet and my father's fury. About the small enterprises that Smart Start has already helped flourish. I'll need full control of the company's direction, I replied. No interference with the core mission. He slid a folder over the table and said, of course. Have your lawyers review it. But Ethan, don't wait too long. This market won't stay open forever. 3 days later, after going over every detail with my sister Claire, who was still a better lawyer than she realized, I signed the contract. You're really doing this, she remarked as she returned the documents with the annotations. Going directly against Dad's business? I'm building something that could save his business, I replied. If he's willing to see it. She gave a headshake. You know he won't, not coming from you. Of course, she was correct, but I also had a strategy. Scaling up over the next 6 months was a blur. I would have given my mother a heart attack if I had rented actual office space in a converted warehouse. Hired salespeople, designers, and developers. When Finn took over as head of customer success, his knowledge of small business owners proved to be quite helpful. Smart Start expanded more quickly than Owen had anticipated. Business circles began to hear about the platform that truly lived up to the hype. From dozens to hundreds to thousands, our user base grew rapidly. Finally, the tech press took notice of us, and then came the piece that made all the difference. Digital David versus Goliath, How Smart Start is Disrupting Enterprise Software. The article commended our ability to assist small firms compete with larger corporations, our creativity, and our emphasis on user experience. The fact that I was Charles Sterling's estranged son was also mentioned, almost as an afterthought. Minutes after the piece went up, my phone rang. Claire. She said. Dad's furious. Without introducing herself. He's calling an emergency board meeting. Why? Smart Start isn't competing with Sterling Enterprises. No, but 3 of their biggest customers just announced they're switching to your platform. Stunned, I reclined. I hadn't observed that mid-sized organizations were beginning to use Smart Start because we've been so focused on tiny enterprises. There's more, insisted Claire. Their latest quarterly numbers, they're bad. Ethan, really bad. The board is talking about forcing Dad out if he doesn't modernize their systems. I retrieved the public financial information for Sterling Enterprises. The figures were worse than I had anticipated. Within 6 months, their stock had fallen 40%. The rate of customer attrition was increasing. They were practically on the verge of going bankrupt due to their antiquated software systems. They need help, I muttered aloud. They need you, she said. But you know Dad will never admit it. Owen Grant's remarks regarding focusing on mid-sized businesses and the several elements we included in Smart Start that may help businesses like Sterling Enterprises were on my mind. Perhaps, I replied softly, they don't have to recognize me. I called an emergency team meeting that evening. I revealed the prototype I had been working on covertly, a new division aimed at larger companies that was based on the Smart Start architecture but had extra capabilities for intricate operations. We're launching enterprise solutions, I said. Finn scowled. I thought we were staying focused on small business. We are. But there's a whole segment of mid-sized companies being crushed between small business agility and big corporation resources. They need what we've built. I neglected to mention that every feature in Enterprise Solutions was created especially to address the issues facing Sterling Enterprises. That I had devoted months to examining their shortcomings and developing fixes for problems they were unaware they had yet. For weeks, the team worked non-stop. We introduced Enterprise Solutions under a different name through a subsidiary that was difficult to link to me. Similar to Sterling Enterprises, the marketing campaign focused on well-established enterprises who were having difficulty embracing digital change. We waited after that. It took very little time. Days after our launch, the new Chief Technology Officer of Sterling Enterprises, who had been hired in a panic following their most recent system failure, contacted us. The location of the meeting was their headquarters. I watched over a secure video link while my father and his board were shown enterprise solutions by our sales team, who were specifically selected to be unrelated to me. I witnessed his realization that this was precisely what they required. Saw him struggle to acknowledge it. Observed the enthusiastic inquiries from the board members regarding cost and implementation. Our sales lead clarified, the investment would be significant but the potential return. My father cut me off, saying, we'll need to see other options. An elderly board member, Jonathan, leaned forward. We've seen 12 presentations in 2 months. This is the only solution that actually addresses our specific needs, and their track record, impressive results with similar companies. Another board member added their voice. My cousin's manufacturing business switched to their system last quarter. Saw immediate improvements. I saw the expression on my father's face as he knew he was losing the battle. Change was what the board desired. Their clients insisted on it. Their best chance of surviving was with enterprise solutions. Fine, he snarled. Start the procurement process. With an odd sense of emptiness, I shut down the video feed. I had succeeded. Produced just what was required by Sterling Enterprises. Confirmed that my vision was correct. Why, therefore, didn't it seem like a win? When Claire contacted again 3 days later, the response was received. She said, Dad's drinking, without introducing herself. Really drinking? Mom's talking about separation. Not because of enterprise solutions, but because he is aware of his failure. My gut nodded. He had to go pleading with outsiders for assistance because the business was collapsing. She hesitated. He keeps saying he should have listened to you. I reflected on all the decisions that had brought us to this point as I gazed out my office window at the metropolitan skyline. My pride, my father's intransigence, and the barriers of silence we established between us. What if, I thought to myself, there was a way to save both the company and his pride? How? I have an idea, but I'll need your help. The board meeting of Sterling Enterprises was set for 9 a.m. Thursday. I watched familiar faces stream into their offices as I waited in my car outside the exact location where I had parked to access their Wi-Fi. Last to arrive was my father, who appeared older than I had recalled. His suit, which was usually spotless, was a little rumpled. His stride was less assured than the one I had grown up admiring. I tapped my phone and asked, "Everything ready?" "All set," the woman said. "The board members are prepped. Owen Grant just arrived, and Mom's in position, though she's still not sure about this." I changed my tie. It was still not the brand my father would pick, but it was a designer now. It has to be today. The Enterprise Solutions contract needs board approval by the end of the week. "Good luck," replied Claire quietly. "Try not to enjoy this too much." Despite my nervousness, I grinned. She was too familiar with me. When I walked in, the security guard looked twice. I had been hauled away the last time I was here following another argument about entering the family business. I was back on my terms now. As I walked in, the boardroom became quiet. My dad's expression quickly changed from astonished to irate to perplexed. Owen Grant, who was seated close to the head of the table, simply nodded as though he had anticipated my arrival. My dad yelled, "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to discuss the Enterprise Solutions contract," I remarked coolly as I set my laptop down on the table. "This is a closed board meeting. Security?" "Actually," Owen replied softly, "Mr. Sterling is here at my request. As the majority investor in Enterprise Solutions, I believe his input is crucial to this discussion." My dad's face turned white. "You what?" My laptop displayed a similar UI when I plugged it in, but not Enterprise Solutions. I chose to show them the original Smart Start dashboard instead, which had my very first designs and notes. "I started building this the day you kicked me out," I said, "using your Wi-Fi. Actually, since I was living in my car at the time." The members of the board shuffled uneasily. My mom eventually turned to face me as she sat calmly in her typical corner seat. I went on. Smart Start grew faster than anyone expected. Small businesses loved it because it solved real problems simply and affordably, but I knew larger companies needed similar solutions. I moved to the interface for Enterprise Solutions. Every feature in this system was designed specifically to address Sterling Enterprises' challenges. The inventory management, the customer tracking, the integration capabilities, all built based on intimate knowledge of what this company needs. My father's voice was trembling with anger as he said, "You've been spying on us." "No," I replied. "I've been trying to save your company. The same company you wanted me to join, but only on your terms." Owen Grant cleared his throat. The board has reviewed Mr. Sterling's proposal. Enterprise Solutions isn't just a software platform. It's a potential merger opportunity. My dad's head jerked up. Merger? I displayed the comprehensive merger proposal that I had been working on for weeks. Smart Start Technology would acquire a controlling interest in Sterling Enterprises, I said. But the Sterling name stays. The legacy business continues, enhanced by modern technology, and the current CEO transitions to Chairman Emeritus, focusing on strategic partnerships rather than day-to-day operations. There was no sound in the room. My dad whispered, "You want to buy my company?" I clarified, "I want to save it. Transform it into something that honors its history while embracing the future, but it has to happen now, before the market completely passes you by." It was my mother who talked first. "Charles, listen to him." Startled, he turned to face her. She had never raised her voice in 30 years of board meetings. "I've seen what Ethan built," she added. "What he sacrificed to build it. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about family." Family. He laughed loudly. He abandoned the family business. "No," I muttered. "I found a different way to support it." Every feature, every innovation in Enterprise Solutions was designed with Sterling Enterprises in mind. Because despite everything, I never stopped believing in what this company could be. I approached his chair and opened a second document on my tablet, my initial business plan, which I had penned in my car the night after I was expelled. The subtitle was Project Phoenix, Modernizing Sterling Enterprises Through Independent Innovation. "You." He fixated on the paper. A dawn of recognition. "This was your plan all along?" "Plan B. Actually, Plan A was convincing you to modernize from within. But you weren't ready to listen then." Owen Grant got to his feet. "The board needs to vote on this merger proposal by the end of day. I suggest we take a brief recess to process this information." I was left alone with my father as everyone else filed out. He looked lost as he sat there looking over my business proposal. He finally questioned, "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have listened? Really listened, not just heard what you wanted to hear?" He remained silent for a while. "You built all this using our Wi-Fi." I couldn't contain my laughter. "That's what you're focusing on?" "No, he said, stroking his gray hair. "I'm trying to understand how my son went from living in his car to offering to buy my company in less than 2 years. The same way you built this company, by seeing opportunity everyone else missed, by working harder than anyone thought possible, by believing in something bigger than myself." Slowly, he nodded. "Your grandfather would have loved this. You know, he always said the best business lessons come from proving the skeptics wrong. I learned that from you. Actually, all those stories about how you built Sterling Enterprises, how you proved everyone wrong who said it would fail." I took a seat beside him. "I just did it my way instead of yours." The merger was approved by the board in a unanimous vote. After the longest delay of my life, my father cast his vote in favor. The changeover wasn't seamless. Particularly with family companies, change is never easy. However, Sterling Enterprises started to change gradually. The name was retained, but the brand was updated. My grandfather's fundamental business was maintained, but it was improved using technology to enable it to prosper in the digital era. Sterling's steadiness and Smart Start's inventiveness came together to create something that neither business could have done on its own. After a year, I sat in my father's office, which is now our office, as he had finally agreed to become Chairman Emeritus. The quarterly figures we were examining had surpassed all expectations. "You were right," he abruptly remarked. I raised my head. "About what?" "About everything." He looked directly into my eyes and said, "The technology, the market changes, the need to adapt." He pointed to the table displaying our most recent findings and said, "I was too proud to see it. Too afraid of losing control. And now I'm proud of what you built, what we're building together." It buzzed on my phone. Finn sent us a message regarding a possible new acquisition target. Another family firm in trouble that required precisely what we produced. I pulled up the plan and added, "Speaking of building," asking, "What do you think about expanding our enterprise division?" He grinned. The genuine smile I recalled from my early years, before anxiety and tension had hardened him. "Tell me more." Later that evening, I passed our former residence. There was still a robust Wi-Fi signal. They were unaware that I had changed their system last month. I reflected on that first night in my car, coding under the light of my laptop, driven by resentment, willpower, and the need to prove everyone wrong. I had discovered, however, that success was not about proving others incorrect. It was about establishing your own credibility and creating something so indisputable that even the most ardent doubters had to admit its worth. My mother reminded me to have family supper as my phone chimed once again. These were now routine occurrences, but the discourse had changed from judgment to sincere interest, from criticism to cooperation. I replied back, "Coming," since I couldn't help but send this over the Wi-Fi. She answered right away. "Very funny. Your father says bring the new acquisition proposal." And yes, he's actually smiling about it. Thinking of how far we'd come, from rejection to reunion, made me smile as well. From rivalry to cooperation. From surreptitiously utilizing their Wi-Fi to assisting them in embracing the digital future. Sometimes proving someone wrong isn't the greatest form of retaliation. It's giving them a whole new perspective on what's right. I carried my family for too long, sacrificing for my golden child sister. Now she spends the money I give her and still turns around to blame me. Clara carried her family like a worn tapestry, its threads frayed and colors faded, yet clinging to her frame with a stubborn weight. The stoop in her shoulders, the weariness in her eyes, they were silent testament to years spent shouldering burdens that were never truly hers. In the sun-drenched, bustling diner where she worked, Clara was a whirlwind of efficiency, balancing plates of pancakes and pouring endless cups of coffee with practiced ease. But beneath the surface, a quiet storm brewed. Growing up in the small town of Willow Creek, Clara had always been the anchor, the steady hand amidst the whirlwind of Daisy's charm. Daisy, with her honeyed voice and theatrical flair, had always been the family's darling. Clara, with her quiet diligence, was simply the one who made things work. Their parents, caught in Daisy's radiant orbit, often overlooked Clara's own aspirations, her dreams of opening a small bakery, tucked away on a quiet corner, filled with the aroma of cinnamon and warm bread. The call came during Clara's lunch break, a familiar plea laced with a familiar guilt. "Clara, honey," their mother's voice crooned through the phone. "Daisy's had a bit of a setback. Her acting class is due, and she doesn't have the money for it right now. Would you be able to help?" Clara stared out the window at the bustling street, her sandwich untouched. Daisy's setbacks were a recurring theme, each one met with Clara's unwavering support. "Mom," she said, trying to keep the weariness from her voice, "I'm working 2 jobs as is. It's getting harder to make ends meet myself." "But she's your sister, Clara," her mother replied, that familiar refrain a weight on Clara's shoulders. "Family looks after each other." And that was that. The decision made, the responsibility transferred, and Clara's dreams pushed further out of reach. A week later, Clara, while reconciling her bank statements, discovered a series of extravagant purchases on Daisy's part, a designer handbag, a weekend getaway, all funded with Clara's help. A cold anger simmered within her, a resentment she'd long suppressed. That night, sleep eluded her. She tossed and turned, the weight of her family pressing down on her. When would it end? When would they stop talking? She finally drifted off to sleep, only to be haunted by a vivid dream of Daisy, dressed in a shimmering gown, standing on a stage bathed in light, while Clara, in the shadows, handed her bouquets of flowers, each one heavier than the last. The following weeks were a blur of exhaustion and resentment. Clara found herself snapping at customers, losing her patience with her coworkers. The diner, once a familiar and comforting space, now felt like a gilded cage. Then came the incident that shattered the fragile facade. Clara received a scathing text message from Daisy, laced with jealousy and resentment, accusing her of being bitter and envious of Daisy's success. It cut deep, confirmation that Daisy didn't see Clara as a loving sister, but as a tool, a means to an end. That night, Clara did something she hadn't done in years. She reached out to Aunt Maeve, her mother's sister, a woman known for her sharp wit and unwavering honesty. Over steaming cups of tea, Clara poured out her heart, the years of accumulated resentment finally spilling over. Aunt Maeve listened patiently, her eyes filled with a knowing sadness. When Clara had finished, she reached across the table and took her niece's hand. "Clara," she said gently, "you have a heart of gold, but even gold can be worn thin. It's time you started taking care of yourself." Her words resonated deep within Clara, a validation she desperately needed. The Reddit update. For the first time in a long time, Clara decided to take charge. She sat down and wrote a message in a Reddit group that touched her heart after searching, "Sister Relationship AITA. AITA for cutting my sister off financially after years of supporting her. I, 32 female, have been supporting my younger sister, Daisy, 28 female, for years. She's an aspiring actress and constantly needs money for acting classes, headshots, etc. I work 2 jobs to help her out. I've always felt obligated to help, as our parents favor her and make me feel guilty if I don't. Recently, I discovered she's been spending the money I give her on frivolous things, while still asking me for more. I confronted her, and she was incredibly rude and dismissive. I'm tired of being used. I want to focus on my own dreams, but I feel guilty cutting her off. AITA for prioritizing myself for once. The responses poured in, a tidal wave of support and validation. Many shared similar stories of family dynamics, of being the reliable one, the one who always gave. The overwhelming consensus was clear: Clara was not the asshole. Inspired by the Reddit comments, Clara made a decision. She informed her parents, gently but firmly, that she would no longer be able to provide financial assistance to Daisy. She braced herself for the backlash, for the familiar guilt trips and accusations. The storm came, as expected. Her mother accused her of being selfish and unsupportive. Her father, for once breaking his silence, berated her for abandoning her sister in her time of need. "I'm not abandoning her," Clara said, her voice shaking but firm. "I'm just choosing to take care of myself for once." She hung up the phone, her hands trembling. The familiar guilt gnawed at her, but beneath it, a flicker of defiance ignited. She found work through the app Fiverr, a source for odd jobs and gigs. She used her earnings to take a business class at the local community college. As she continued her work there, she found new resources and sources for inspiration. That night, she received a series of angry, accusatory messages from Daisy. "How could you do this to me?" One message read, "You're ruining my life." Clara stared at the messages, the familiar sting of guilt rising within her. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then did something she never thought she could do. She deleted the messages and turned off her phone. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace, a quiet strength that had been buried beneath layers of obligation and resentment. The next Reddit update, "I cut my sister off, and my family is furious, but I'm starting to feel free. Hi Reddit, I wanted to thank everyone for their amazing support on my last post. It gave me the courage to finally cut my sister off financially. As expected, my family is not happy. They've been bombarding me with calls and texts, accusing me of being selfish and ruining my sister's life. It's been incredibly difficult, but I'm holding my ground. I'm finally prioritizing myself and my own dreams. It feels scary, but also incredibly liberating. Thank you for helping me find my voice." Liam was a frequent customer at the diner, a local artist with a kind smile and a keen eye. He had noticed the change in Clara, the quiet strength that now radiated from her. He offered her friendship, a listening ear, and unwavering support. One afternoon, Liam stopped by the diner with a small painting, a vibrant depiction of the diner's exterior, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. "I wanted to give you this," he said, handing Clara the painting. "I've been wanting to create an image for you, so you will never forget what has touched your heart." Clara stared at the painting, her heart swelling with emotion. It was more than just a picture. It was a validation of her worth, a reminder that she was seen, appreciated, and valued for who she was, not for what she could give. The following months were a journey of self-discovery and healing. Clara spent her free time attending the business classes, poring over cookbooks, and sketching designs for her dream bakery. She reconnected with old friends, joined a local hiking group, and started painting again, rediscovering the joy and creativity that had been dormant for so long. One day, while browsing through a local antique shop, Clara stumbled upon a beautiful, hand-painted sign, its script elegant and timeless. It read, "Clara's Corner, Bakery and Dreams." A wave of emotion washed over her, a mix of sadness, hope, and unwavering determination. She purchased the sign, a symbol of her commitment to her own dreams, a promise to herself that she would never again sacrifice her own happiness for the sake of others. The final confrontation with Daisy came unexpectedly. Clara received a frantic call from her mother, begging her to help Daisy, who had gotten into financial trouble with a shady acting coach. Clara listened patiently, her heart aching for her sister, but her resolve unwavering. "Mom," she said gently but firmly, "I'm sorry, but I can't. Daisy needs to learn to take responsibility for her own choices." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, her mother hung up, the final thread of obligation severed. That night, Clara received a text message from Daisy. "I hate you," it read. "You've ruined everything." Clara stared at the message, the familiar sting of guilt rising within her. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then, with a sense of finality, blocked Daisy's number. The past, with its burdens and obligations, was finally behind her. She was free. The bakery dream. Clara threw herself into her work at the diner, saving every penny she could. She studied business plans, scouted locations, and perfected her recipes. Liam became her unofficial advisor, offering his artistic eye and unwavering support. One blustery autumn day, Clara signed the lease on a small, unassuming storefront on a quiet corner of Willow Creek. It wasn't much, but it was hers. A blank canvas upon which to create her dream. With the help of Liam and a few close friends, Clara transformed the space into a cozy haven, filled with warm colors, inviting aromas, and handmade touches. Years later, Clara's Corner Bakery and Dreams became a beloved fixture in Willow Creek, a place where locals gathered to savor Clara's delicious pastries, sip steaming cups of coffee, and share stories with the warm-hearted owner. It gave a sense of quiet confidence. She found the energy to live life and give inspiration to others, with her culinary masterpieces and warm heart. It helped her to find love and a peace. One sunny afternoon, as Clara was arranging a display of freshly baked lilac-infused cookies, the bell above the door jingled. A woman walked in, her face lined with age and regret, but her eyes still holding a flicker of Daisy's youthful spark. It was her mother. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of years hanging heavy between them. Then, her mother stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Clara," she said. "I just wanted to tell you, I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. For everything." Clara's heart softened, a wave of forgiveness washing over her. "It's okay, Mom," she said, her voice filled with a quiet grace. "It's all in the past." Her mother smiled, a genuine heartfelt smile. "Can I try one of those lilac cookies?" she asked. Clara returned the smile. "Of course," she said, handing her mother a cookie. "They're my favorite." As her mother savored the delicate flavor, Clara glanced around her bakery, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had built this, brick by brick, dream by dream, from the ashes of her past. Reddit post, conclusion, final update. My life is different because I broke free and it felt amazing. Hey Reddit, so, what's up for those of you keeping up with my story? Let me tell you all of what's going on with myself after I asked the question for the ages on AITA. Things were pretty tough for a while, but breaking free from my sister's expectations and the expectations of my parents was the best thing I could have ever done. Here I am, with Clara's Corner, that provides me peace and happiness, and a new relationship. Here's what my bakery is like now. I just got back from my family, and after so long in distance, things were worth it. But, I am grateful for those of you who followed me. Thanks again. Clara's Corner, Epilogue. Years later, Clara sat on the porch of her small bakery, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of lilac and gold. Liam sat beside her, his hand gently resting on hers. Daisy, she had learned, had finally found her footing, working as a drama teacher at a local high school, sharing her passion with a new generation. They didn't see each other often, but there was a quiet understanding between them, a fragile peace that had finally taken root. Clara closed her eyes, breathing in the sweet scent of lilacs, and a sense of contentment settled over her. She had carried the weight of her family for so long, but now, she was free to carry her own dreams, her own hopes, her own happiness. And that, she knew, was a weight worth bearing. That's all she wanted to know, and to remember the moments that helped her to arrive at this point in her life. A new love, a family, and friends to cherish, with all this in her heart and mind. She could have had a quiet life after everything that has happened. But, in the end, she broke through. With the people that have hurt her. And she now understood why breaking point was key for the steps she would take forward. My roommate's boyfriend moved in, paid nothing, made absurd rules, and now I found out he's been using my credit card. Olivia, a 19-year-old art history major, considered herself a fairly laid-back person. She was attending her sophomore year at a small liberal arts college in upstate New York. Living with her roommate Emma, a vibrant 20-year-old studying journalism, had been a breeze, until it wasn't. They'd been friends since freshman year, bonding over shared classes and a mutual love for overpriced coffee. When their leases were up in the dorms, it seemed only natural to find an apartment together. Their little two-bedroom, affectionately nicknamed the Burrow, was nothing fancy. Thin walls, questionable plumbing, and a persistent draft. But it was their own. "Liv, have you met Ethan?" Emma gushed one crisp October evening, practically dragging a tall, lanky guy into their cramped living room. "Ethan, this is Olivia, my amazing roommate." Ethan flashed a charming, if slightly smug grin. "Pleasure to meet you, Olivia. Emma's told me so much about you." Olivia offered a polite smile, immediately picking up on Ethan's overconfidence. He sported a well-groomed beard and wore a beanie indoors, which Olivia silently judged. He was the type to mansplain art history, she just knew it. At first, Ethan was just a frequent visitor. They'd watch movies, order takeout, and generally occupy the common areas, which was fine. Liv was often buried in books or at the campus art studio anyway. But then things started to shift. A toothbrush materialized in the bathroom, followed by a collection of hoodies in the closet. Ethan's presence became less of a visit and more of a residency. He was there all the time, hogging the TV, eating their groceries, and leaving a trail of dirty socks in his wake. Emma, Liv broached the subject one afternoon, trying to keep her tone light. I love that you and Ethan are so close, but he's kind of here all the time. Maybe he could chip in for groceries or, like, utilities? Emma bristled. Liv, he's just visiting, it's not a big deal. Besides, it's not like he uses that much electricity. Liv bit back a retort about Ethan's all-night gaming sessions. Okay, she said, forcing a smile. Just thought I'd ask. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan's freeloading only intensified. Their electricity bill skyrocketed, their pantry was perpetually empty, and Liv's favorite mug mysteriously vanished. She suspected Ethan used it for his protein shakes. The last straw was the noise. Ethan and his friends would gather in the living room late into the night, their boisterous laughter and video game explosions echoing through the thin walls. Liv, who had an 8 a.m. art history seminar, was perpetually sleep-deprived and irritable. One Saturday morning, after another sleepless night, Liv found Ethan sprawled on the couch, playing his Xbox. She surveyed the scene. Pizza boxes, energy drink cans, and a general atmosphere of frat house chaos. Ethan, she said, her voice tight with frustration. Can you guys please keep it down? I'm trying to study. Ethan didn't even look up. Chill, Liv, we're almost done. That was it. Liv stormed out of the apartment, vowing to have a serious talk with Emma. Emma, this has to stop, Liv pleaded that evening, cornering her in their tiny kitchen. Ethan is basically living here, and it's not fair to me. I signed up to live with you, not you and your boyfriend. Emma crossed her arms, her expression hardening. Liv, you're overreacting. Ethan's just been going through a rough patch. Besides, he's been helping out around the apartment. Helping out? He hung one picture, Emma, and he uses more of my stuff than I do. He ate the last of my cereal that I was saving. Liv exclaimed. Okay, I will talk to him about contributing to groceries and such, Emma offered. Liv thought that was the end of it, but oh no, it got much worse than that. Then came the ultimatum. Liv was in the kitchen making herself lunch when Ethan walked in to grab a beer from the fridge, and he casually said, Since I'm basically living here already, I was thinking of moving in permanently. Liv was taken aback from his comment. I'm not sure about that. Then fast forward to a week later, Liv was about to go to the library to study with some friends when Ethan cornered her. Liv, I have been doing some thinking and I'd be willing to move in, but only on one condition. Oh yeah? What's that? Liv replied with uncertainty. Ethan started to lay out his rules. First, you need to respect my gaming time and make sure that the Wi-Fi is free for me to use when I am streaming. Second, you cannot have any of your male friends over, and I want you to start doing your fair share of the cooking and cleaning. Liv was livid. Are you serious? I cook and clean just as much as you and Emma. I will not let you disrespect me like that. And one last thing. Ethan continued. You need to ask me for permission to invite your friends over. Absolutely not. You are delusional if you think that is going to happen. Liv scoffed and headed to her car. The next day, Liv was approached by Emma. So Ethan told me about your conversation and I am appalled at how you treated him. He was just trying to see if you would be a good roommate. I am siding with him on this one. After hearing that Liv was at a loss for words, Emma was choosing Ethan over her. Okay, well, you are going to have to choose between him and me, cause I cannot do this anymore, Liv exclaimed with tears in her eyes. Liv decided enough was enough and made a post on Reddit. AITA for not wanting my roommate's boyfriend to move in after he gave me a list of rules. I, 19F, live with my roommate, 20F, in a small 2-bedroom apartment near our college campus. We've been friends since freshman year, but things have been rocky ever since she started dating Jake, 22 months. Jake is over all the time, doesn't pay rent, and makes a mess. I finally told my roommate that Jake needs to either start paying his share or stop practically living here. She told him and now he is mad and made up a list of rules for me if he were to move in. I don't want him to move in at all and think this is completely unfair. AITA for refusing to let him move in after his ridiculous test and for wanting him to pay his fair share if he's going to be here all the time. Update 1. Hi Reddit, I wanted to thank everyone for your amazing feedback on my last post. It seems like you all agree that Ethan is a freeloader and that I am NTA. I have been taking your advice and have started to set some boundaries with Ethan. I spoke with my friend the other day and she offered to let me sleep at her apartment if things get really bad. Ethan has been doing some petty things around the house, such as using my stuff, and I even caught him the other day reading my diary. It's like he is trying to get to me. Emma and I haven't spoken much, but from what I can tell, she is still choosing Ethan over our friendship. I am contacting the landlord today to see what my options are. I will keep you all updated. Thanks again for the support. Update 2. Hi Reddit, I wanted to let you all know that I finally got a hold of the landlord the other day. I explained to him what was going on, and he was furious. He stated that Ethan was in violation of the lease agreement and that he was going to send a notice to Emma stating that he had to leave. I also wanted to let you all know that I found out Ethan had been using my credit card. The other day I was checking my bank statements and noticed some unfamiliar purchases. I confronted Emma about it and she immediately started crying. She told me that Ethan had been pressuring her into giving him my card information. I don't know why she would do such a thing. She knows I am short on money as is. I will keep you all updated on what happens next. Update 3. Hi Reddit, I wanted to let you all know that Ethan is gone. The landlord came by and served Emma with the notice, and Ethan was immediately escorted out of the apartment. I was so relieved. I thought that was going to be the end of it, but Emma started crying hysterically, asking me why I would do such a thing. I explained to her that it was nothing personal and that Ethan was in violation of our agreement. I also told her that I found out he had been using my credit card and that I was going to be pressing charges. She just looked at me with shock. Long story short, Emma has finally come to her senses and apologized. She said that she was blinded by love and that she realized that Ethan was a terrible person. She has since broken up with him and we are now working on repairing our friendship. I wanted to thank you all for your support through this tough time. It means the world to me. Liv, I'm so sorry. Emma sobbed a few days later, her eyes red and puffy. I was so stupid. Ethan completely manipulated me. He was using me, using our apartment, using you. Liv sighed, a wave of exhaustion washing over her. I know, Em. It's okay. What matters is that you see it now. In the aftermath, there was a lot of rebuilding to do. Liv helped Emma file a police report about the credit card fraud. They reorganized the apartment, reclaiming their shared space. They even had a cleansing ritual, burning incense and sage to banish Ethan's lingering energy. So, Liv said tentatively one evening, as they were painting the living room a cheerful shade of yellow. Are we good? Emma smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. Yeah, Liv. We're good. I promise, no more Ethan-like figures in our lives. Liv returned the smile, a weight lifting from her shoulders. The burrow, once a battleground, was finally becoming a home again. A few months later. Liv, I need your honest opinion, Emma said, holding up a picture on her phone. This guy from my journalism class asked me out. What do you think? Liv squinted at the photo. He seems nice, Em. But if he starts leaving his socks on the floor, I'm calling the landlord. Emma laughed, a light, carefree laugh. Deal. The weeks that followed Ethan's departure were a period of quiet healing. The apartment felt lighter, brighter. The ever-present tension had dissipated, replaced by a sense of relief. Liv and Emma tiptoed around each other at first, unsure how to navigate their rekindled friendship. Liv found herself being more patient, understanding. She knew Emma was grappling with guilt and embarrassment, and she didn't want to pile on. Instead, she focused on small gestures, making Emma's favorite tea, watching a cheesy rom-com together, offering a listening ear when Emma needed to vent. One evening, Liv came home to find Emma meticulously cleaning the bathroom, scrubbing with a vengeance. Rough day? Liv asked gently. Emma sighed, wiping her brow. You have no idea. I ran into Ethan on campus today. He tried to talk to me, said he was sorry. But it was all about him, how hard he had it. It was sickening. Liv leaned against the doorframe. Good for you for not falling for it. Thanks, Emma said softly. It's thanks to you that I didn't. You were right all along, Liv. I just didn't want to admit it. Hey, Liv said, walking over and giving Emma a hug. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them. As time went on, their friendship began to resemble its former self. They started having their traditional girls' nights, complete with face masks, bad reality TV, and endless gossip. They rediscovered their shared love for thrifting, spending hours scouring vintage shops for hidden treasures. One rainy afternoon, they stumbled upon a small antique store tucked away on a side street. Inside, they found a beautiful, hand-painted ceramic mug, intricately decorated with flowers. This would be perfect for you, Emma said, holding up the mug. Remember how much you loved that one Ethan broke? Liv smiled, her heart swelling with warmth. It's beautiful, Em. Thanks. That night, as Liv sipped tea from her new mug, she realized that something had fundamentally shifted. The burrow wasn't just a place to live anymore, it was a sanctuary, a haven where she felt safe, loved, and supported. The lease renewal. As their lease renewal approached, Liv felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. The thought of committing to another year in the burrow was terrifying after everything that had happened. She voiced her concerns to Emma one evening over dinner. I don't know if I can do this. I love you, but the thought of reliving that whole Ethan nightmare makes me want to run for the hills. Emma reached across the table and took Liv's hand. Liv, I understand. And if you want to move out, I won't be mad. But I really want us to stay together. I promise things will be different this time. Liv looked into Emma's eyes, searching for any sign of hesitation or doubt. But all she saw was sincerity. Okay, Liv said, her voice trembling slightly. Let's do it. Let's renew the lease. They signed the papers together, a sense of cautious optimism filling the room. They both knew that the future was uncertain, but they were determined to face it together, as friends. A year later. A year passed, and the burrow became a haven of creativity, laughter, and genuine companionship. Liv and Emma flourished, both in their personal lives and academic pursuits. They supported each other through late-night study sessions, internship applications, and the occasional heartbreak. One crisp autumn evening, as Liv was putting the finishing touches on a new painting, Emma burst into the apartment, her eyes sparkling. Liv, guess what? She exclaimed. I got the internship, at the New York Times. Liv dropped her paintbrush and rushed to hug Emma. Oh my God, Em, that's amazing, I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you, Liv, Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. You've been the best friend anyone could ask for. They spent the rest of the evening celebrating, dancing to their favorite music and reminiscing about their wild journey together. They had faced a storm and emerged stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected than ever before. As Liv looked around their cozy apartment, she realized that the burrow wasn't just a place. It was a testament to their resilience, their forgiveness, and the enduring power of friendship. And she knew, with unwavering certainty, that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead, as long as they had each other. Final Reddit update. Update. It's been a year. We renewed our lease and I wanted to thank you all. Hey Reddit, remember my post about my freeloader roommate's boyfriend and all the drama that ensued? Well, a year has passed, and I wanted to give you all a final update. First of all, thank you. Thank you for your advice, your support, and your virtual shoulders to cry on. You helped me see through the gaslighting and realize that I deserved better. Things are amazing now. My roommate, Emma, completely turned things around. She broke up with the freeloader boyfriend, Ethan, and we worked hard to rebuild our friendship. We just renewed our lease, and the burrow feels like a real home again. We're both thriving in our studies and are excited about the future. To anyone going through a similar situation, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Set boundaries, seek support, and remember that you deserve to live in a safe, respectful environment. And to my Reddit community, thank you for everything. You truly changed my life. Live out. Epilogue. Years later, Olivia and Emma stood side by side as Emma prepared to move to New York for her dream job at the Times. I can't believe we made it, Emma said, looking around the burrow one last time. We survived the freeloader, the ultimatum, and everything in between. Liv smiled. We did. And we're stronger because of it. As Emma hugged Liv goodbye, a sense of bittersweetness filled the air. They knew that their lives were heading in different directions, but their friendship would endure, no matter the distance. I'll miss you, Liv, Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. I'll miss you too, Em, Liv replied. But we'll always have the burrow. And in their hearts, they knew it was true. The burrow would forever hold a special place in their memories, a symbol of their shared journey, their unwavering friendship, and the triumphant way they had overcome adversity. My sister excluded me from her bachelorette party, then asked me to babysit. I said no, but she still dumped her kids at my door and left. You won't believe this shout, all right? Basically, I was not invited to my sister's bachelorette party since it was for close friends only. However, she later requested me to watch her children instead. I mean, are you serious? I was nice enough to raise her children for free, but I couldn't even join in on the fun. The arrogance, to be honest. I made the decision to show her the truth. It was usually that way while I was growing up. By the way, my sister is Tiffany, and my name is Violet. Little things at the beginning. I had to share my lunch if she didn't bring it to school. I was the one who stayed up late to help her do any schoolwork that was due the following day. It was a major issue and caused problems in my home when she would have tantrums over things, and my parents would encourage me to be the bigger person and let it go. Nothing altered as we grew older. I somehow ended up being Tiffany's unofficial babysitter for her 2 young children. If I didn't have anything else to do, she would drop them off without much notice. Too bad if I had plans. I could find time if I was busy. It seems like it has been going on forever. I endured it for years. Then she became engaged. I had come to terms with the fact that I would most likely be asked to do a ton of things for her wedding. She would count on me to run errands, go dress shopping, assist with planning, and, of course, keep the kids whenever she needed me. I had anticipated all of that. The bachelorette party scenario was something I wasn't expecting. I was looking through Instagram one day when I came across a post from a buddy of ours. A big group of women were celebrating and chatting about how delighted they were as it counted down to Tiffany's bachelorette vacation. Confused, I gazed at my screen. Regarding this excursion, I had not heard anything. I figured I would hear about it shortly and it was just being arranged. A couple of days went by, no invitation, not a word about it. I therefore chose to ask Tiffany, Hey, are you doing a bachelorette trip? Tiffany? Oh yeah, it's just going to be a small group, only my closest friends. Best friends? Her only sister was me. Her bridal party was supposed to have included me. My response, oh, I just assumed I'd be invited. Tiffany, I didn't think you'd be into it. We're having a fun girls' weekend. I didn't want you to feel out of place. Not at home? Even so, what did that mean? As soon as she saw my expression, she said, Violet, you know it's nothing personal. I just want a certain vibe, you know. I pretended to understand and nodded, but I was hurting on the inside. It hurt that she didn't even think about inviting me, even though I didn't want to go on their trip enough to beg. I convinced myself it wasn't a huge problem and swallowed it down. She was free to throw her party. I had no intention of making a fuss over it. I assumed that would be the last of it. I was mistaken. Tiffany, who never calls unless she needs something, called me 2 days before the trip. I answered, already figuring out where this was headed. Tiffany. Hey, so I have a huge favor to ask. I remained silent as I waited. Tiffany. This weekend, I need you to watch the kids. I'm in serious trouble because our sitter just canceled. She told me that her vacation was just for close friends, so I almost laughed, but now she was expecting me to drop everything and watch the kids so she could go, so I let her continue. Tiffany. It would help me so much. You know how hard it is to find a sitter at the last minute, and I know you love spending time with them. The guilt trip was there. I wanted to say no right away, but then I had an idea, so I told her I would get back to her later instead of answering her right away, and she appeared relieved. Tiffany. Sis, thank you. I was sure I could rely on you. I went online and made a last-minute reservation for a beachfront resort after hanging up without making any commitments. Payback time, BTech. Tiffany called again the night before she was scheduled to depart. Tiffany said, so we're good for tomorrow, right? I inhaled deeply and spoke in an informal tone. You. Oh, I forgot to text you. I actually booked a trip for myself this weekend. I won't be around to babysit. Quiet. Tiffany. Wait, what? What do you mean you booked a trip? You never go anywhere? I disregarded the remark. You. Yeah, I figured it was time to do something fun for myself. Hope you figure things out. She began to splutter. Tiffany. But wait. What? You can't just leave. What am I supposed to do with the kids? You. Not sure. Maybe ask one of your close friends. As if I had slapped her, she gasped. Tiffany. Oh my God. You're being so petty right now. I gave a shrug. You. Not trying to be, just prioritizing myself, like you did before. I told her I had to leave before she could continue. After that, I packed my bags, switched off my phone's notifications, and went to bed. I woke up early the following morning, packed my belongings, and headed out. My phone began to explode with voicemails, missed calls, and angry texts as I was on the beach sipping champagne and listening to the waves. The initial one. Tiffany? Where are you? I'm at your house. The following. You said you'd help me, said Tiffany. Then Janice, my mother, called. I let the voicemail go, then she called repeatedly. At last, I responded. Mother. Violet, Tiffany is outside your house with the kids. What is going on? I sipped my beverage. My response. I told her I wouldn't be home. I have my own plans this weekend. Mama. Wait, so she expected you to babysit? You. Yep. Without even asking me first. Quiet. Then. Mom. I see. I didn't get a shout from her. She didn't point out my selfishness to me. She also sounded, for the first time in her life, weary of Tiffany's actions. That's wonderful to hear. My phone is still vibrating on the table as I sit by the ocean and watch the sunset. Tiffany is still yelling and calling me non-stop outside my house. I'm not sure if I should respond. After I finish my drink, perhaps. After a few minutes of silence, my phone began to ring again, but this time it wasn't Tiffany, it was my dad, Richard. My dad never calls unless something serious is happening. I sighed, picked it up and braced myself. I sat there watching the waves roll in, feeling the warm breeze on my face. The sound of the ocean drowned out the buzzing of my phone, but I could still see the notifications piling up. "Where are you?" asked Dad. I could detect the sharpness in his tone, even though his voice was quiet. "Me. On the shore. Taking a rest. Dad. Tiffany and the children are crying in front of your house. She claims that you left them behind." I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. "Me. I didn't leave anyone behind. I never consented to be a babysitter. Dad. She had plans this weekend, as you are aware. She required your assistance. I was expected to constantly step up, no matter what, and there it was, the standard speech. Me. I was not invited on her trip. I was close enough to be her free babysitter, but she didn't think I was close enough to be there. Not now." Dad was silent for a while. "Father. I understand that you're upset, but family takes care of each other." I gave a little chuckle. "Me. Is Tiffany looking after me? Has she ever? Or am I simply supposed to give up everything for her at any time?" More silence, followed by an unexpected development. "Father. Your mother and I are on our way to get the kids." I straightened my posture in my chair. "Me. You're heading to Tiffany's house? Hold on. No, your house," said Dad. After leaving the children there, she departed. Anger began to slowly swell in my breast. Tiffany had left her children outside my house, thinking that someone, anybody, would watch them. She had not made other plans or recruited another babysitter, so she simply left them there and went. I took another sip of my drink while clenching my jaw. "Me. How long ago?" "Dad. Roughly 20 minutes. I'm already halfway there with your mom." She truly believed that I would give in, that I would go home in a panic and accept responsibility like I always did, but this time, I let out a sharp breath. "Me. All okay. Tell me when you get them." After hanging up, I tried to calm myself by staring out at the water and thinking about how horrible it was for the kids, who didn't deserve this and didn't know their mother was using them as pawns in some absurd guilt trip. I thought about calling Tiffany, but I knew what she would say. She would play the victim, turn this around on me, and tell everyone that I was the selfish, cruel sister who made her leave her kids on a doorstep because she had no other option. It wasn't worth it. My dad texted me 15 minutes later, saying, "Dad, we have them." I released a breath I didn't know I was holding, and then he contacted me again, saying, "Dad, we're taking them to our house." My mom, Janice, had always found ways to make things better for Tiffany, but something about this had pushed her over the edge. "Your mother is furious." That made me stop. Mom was furious. That was new. Before I could give it much thought, another message arrived, this time from Tiffany. "How could you do that to me?" asked Tiffany. I rolled my eyes and continued to read, but now I had the problem. Tiffany replied, "You know I had nowhere else to go." "What else was I supposed to do?" asked Tiffany. "Tiffany, you really are making a big deal out of a trip. You're self-centered and petty." And last, the message. "You're dead to me," said Tiffany. This wasn't over yet, but I wasn't going to let her spoil my weekend, so I locked my phone and put it away after staring at the screen for a moment. As I reclined on my lounge chair, I allowed Tiffany's irate text to remain unread. Everything was bathed in rich orange and gold hues as the sun descended over the ocean. The waves were calm, steady, and rhythmic. Something bothered me even though I should have been at ease. Tiffany wasn't one to take things lightly. She was always adept at assigning blame and manipulating circumstances to her advantage, and this was the kind of thing she would cling to for years. I let out a sigh, sipped my drink slowly, then picked up my phone once more. 42 messages remain unread. Some from my mother, most from Tiffany. I started by quickly reading Mom's most recent text. "Mother. We have the kids." "Mother. Tiffany isn't answering our calls." "Mama. Call me when you can." I scowled. Why wasn't Tiffany responding to them? She kept sending me texts, but was she ignoring them? That was nonsensical. After a moment of hesitation, I clicked on her name. The texts were just what I had anticipated. Tiffany said, "I hope you're happy you ruined everything." Tiffany said, "You're so bitter it's disgusting." Tiffany said, "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." Tiffany said, "I hope you're enjoying yourself while I'm falling apart." Nothing fresh. The standard guilt tripping. A new message appeared just as I was ready to put my phone away once more. Tiffany said, "I told my friends what you did. They all agree you're an awful sister. No wonder you don't have many close friends." I gave a quick breath. It was there. Throughout my entire life, I had been the trustworthy, responsible, and good sibling. I had to be the bigger person, and Tiffany was used to that. She had to make me the bad guy now that I wasn't going out of my way for her. I put my phone away and locked it. Allow her to provide her version. I didn't give a damn. I believed I didn't, anyhow. My phone buzzed once more about an hour later, right as I was wrapping up supper at the resort's outdoor eatery. I let out a sigh, anticipating more irate texts. It wasn't Tiffany, though. My neighbor was the one. Your neighbor. "Hey, are you home? There's someone banging on your front door." I felt sick to my stomach. I instantly typed back. "Who is it?" I exclaimed. "Your neighbor. I think it's Tiffany. She's yelling your name." She was, of course. I tightened my jaw. Tiffany was at my house, most likely prepared to yell at me face to face, after realizing that our parents wouldn't give in as they normally did. Me. I'm not in the city. Neighbor. She is unhappy about that, yes. You want me to do what? I inhaled deeply. Ignore her, I say. She's waking up the entire street, says the neighbor. Rachel was obviously dramatic, but this was something different. What was she trying to do, make a scene and get me to go home quickly? If that was her goal, it wouldn't work, so I rubbed my temples. After 15 minutes, my dad sent me another SMS. Dad. Tiffany just arrived at our house and is requesting that the children return. I scowled since it didn't make sense that she had left them there, gone away, and disregarded their calls before demanding their return. Next, another text. Something's wrong, Dad? She's acting weird. Tiffany was a lot of things, but she wasn't reckless with her children. She was entitled and manipulative, but she was also strategic. If she abandoned them, it was to make a point, but now that she was going back, something wasn't right. My phone then buzzed once more, this time with a message from my neighbor. Tiffany left her neighbor, but about 5 minutes later, a man came looking for her. My stomach turned over. What guy am I? The tall, somewhat rough-looking neighbor knocked a few times, glanced around, and then walked away. Tiffany only surrounded herself with individuals who could help her in some manner. She didn't date guys like that. Who is this person and why was he looking for her? I gazed at my phone, feeling my pulse quicken up. I went back to Tiffany's previous message, which read, Tiffany, I hope you're having fun while I'm falling apart. Tiffany was erratic, but this time she had gone from angry to desperate in a matter of hours. She had abandoned her children, then demanded their return, and now some random guy was showing up at my house looking for her. I had thought she was just being dramatic, but now I wasn't sure, and I couldn't get rid of the feeling that something wasn't right. My instinct told me that I couldn't ignore this, so I contacted Tiffany, something I hadn't done in years, despite my best efforts to ignore it and enjoy my weekend. She didn't respond. Voicemail when I tried again. I debated while staring at my phone, and then I called my dad, who answered right away. Me. She just left you, Dad. What took place? Dad. Sigh. She suddenly appeared and demanded that the children be returned. Until she clarified the situation, your mother told her no. Tiffany snapped. Yelling, sobbing, and declaring our collective opposition to her. Me. Did she explain her initial reason for leaving them? Dad. Not at all. However, she insisted that she needed to make a change before it was too late. I clenched my fingers around my phone. Me. Did she mention the issue she needed to resolve? Dad. No, she also forbade me from calling the police. She claimed to be in control of it. I checked the time, and it was late, but I had a bad feeling this wasn't finished, and I was right. That didn't seem like Tiffany, who always made sure others saw her as the victim and would call the police if she had any reason to do so. My mom called at around 2 in the morning, and I answered right away when I heard my phone vibrate noisily on the nightstand. Me. What's the matter? Mom. Tiffany is back at our place, and that individual is as well. I leapt from my bed. Me. What? Did he follow her there? Mom. Yes. Outside, they are arguing. I quickly put on my clothes, picked up my bag, and hurried to leave the resort. Me. Make a police call. Mom. Tiffany keeps warning us not to, but your father did it already. I was already in the vehicle and driving quickly on the freeway. My response, I'm coming home. Mom. What? Don't, please? I had already hung up though, since I needed to see for myself that Tiffany had pulled our entire family into whatever problem she was in. One of the officers was standing between them, attempting to defuse the situation, and I parked and got out, feeling my heart pound in my chest. By the time I pulled up to our parents' house, 2 police cars were outside, and Tiffany was sobbing hysterically on the front porch while the man, whom I could now see clearly, was pacing on the sidewalk and shouting something at her. He was tall, rough-looking, and angry, and I didn't recognize him. Mom hurried over when she first seen me. Mom. You weren't supposed to arrive. Too late, I said. I glanced at the man, then at Tiffany. Me. Who's that? Mom gave a headshake. Parents. We don't know. I looked at Tiffany. Me. Who's that, Tiffany? Tiffany wouldn't give me a look. Instead, the man turned to face me. Man. You're the sister, aren't you? The one who abandoned her. I was taken aback and retreated. Me. Pardon me. Mocking voice of a man. I need a weekend to myself. I don't have time to help my own sister. My blood froze. Me. Did you mention me to him, Tiffany? The man chuckled, but Tiffany refused to look at me. Man. She did, of course. She put the responsibility on you. Said that she was stranded in this dilemma because of you. I tightened my jaw. What mess? I asked myself. Man. The money. The ground seemed to have been torn out from under me. Me. How much money? The man snorted. Mail. The $10,000 she owes me. My heart ceased, and I looked at Tiffany. My response. Tell me he's lying. Tiffany's eyes were bloodshot and her face was pallid when she finally looked up. Tiffany. She whispered. For the wedding, I needed the money. I gazed at her. Me. You took out a loan from him? Why? She shook her head and wiped her cheeks. Tiffany said, I thought I could pay it back before he came looking. The man chuckled once again. Guy. Yeah, well, you thought wrong. I looked back at him. So you're a loan shark? I asked. Male. I prefer businessman. I took a deep breath. Me. What did you think? Would you get paid more quickly if you came here and caused a scene? He gave a shrug. Man. I couldn't get her to return my calls. Her excuses ran out, so here we are. I gave Tiffany another glance. Me. You left the kids in my house for what reason? Tiffany sobbed while covering her face. According to Tiffany, I didn't want them to be around if things got bad. I shut my eyes. She had taken advantage of me, tried to have me watch her children so she could deal with a loan shark behind my back, and then abandoned them anyway. She had put us all in danger because she didn't want to be held accountable for her own behavior. I was done. After obtaining statements, the police ultimately escorted the man away. Our parents weren't amenable to Tiffany's attempts at apology. Father. You put your kids in danger, Tiffany? Mama. You put all of us in danger. Your mother. And you tried to blame your sister for your mistake. Tiffany continued to cry, stating that she was at a loss for what to do. Silently, I stood there. I had no feelings. I had lost my anger. I wasn't shocked at all. I was simply worn out. My response. Figured it out, Tiffany. Her eyes were big as she gazed up at me. You're just going to walk away? Asked Tiffany. Me. Yes. I didn't feel compelled to make things right for her for the first time in my life. This mess was her fault. It would need to be cleaned by her. I turned, made my way back to my vehicle, and departed. For weeks Tiffany and I didn't communicate. Later, I learned that in order to pay off the debt, my parents made her sell some of her wedding pleasures. Although it was far smaller than she had initially intended, the wedding still took place. The bridal party did not include me. They didn't even invite me. And to be honest, I didn't mind that. I prioritized myself for the first time in my life. My future sister-in-law caused my miscarriage, yet was still accepted. During my next pregnancy, she mocked me and ruined the joy. Let me tell you what happened, gentlemen. If not for my life, you wouldn't believe this story. Some days I feel like I'm in a Lifetime movie. Extremely dark and twisted. My ex-sister-in-law killed my first baby. Yes, you read correctly. Still, she was invited to our next pregnancy announcement. Yeah, right? Insane. Then it gets crazier because a wedding, kidnapping, and legal trouble are involved. I'm shocked to say this about my family, not how I saw my life. 5 years ago, Caleb and I went on a blind date. Isabella was hesitant about the date. You know those scary stories? I forgot my worries when I met Caleb. He made me feel like the only girl in the room with his charm and attention. He noticed how my eyes fluttered when I flirted and how my lips pouted when I liked something. I thought it was adorable and pure. I was smitten from the start and thought I would never fall. He joked that his family was insane on the date. I joked that we're all insane and didn't take it seriously. Oops. 2 years later, I was walking down the aisle to marry him. Interestingly, our first relationship issue arose on our wedding day. This was my first time meeting his brother's girlfriend, Serafina. The first time I saw her, I wore white and had professional makeup. This was after Caleb and I had uttered our vows, so I was still high on serotonin and had drunk some. I danced to Serafina to introduce myself. I wasn't going to comment about her outfit, which was near to white, because I'm non-confrontational. I moved to hug and greet her, but she pushed me away and looked disgusted. She told me I was embarrassed and didn't like attention. I kept dancing, and she told me I was glad Caleb had such low standards because if he were more like his brother Ethan, he would have slapped me for even considering him. Like what? I don't know why you'd brag about your partner hitting a woman, but I kept dancing and ignored her, which is why she did what she did. Maybe she had mental issues, but she returned a few minutes later with a glass of wine. It destroyed my wedding dress when she flung it. She then abruptly said she knew Caleb and I wanted kids and prayed I never got any. It was random. Why did she dislike me? I wanted to cry, but I didn't want to be seen or ruin my day. I gathered myself, went out back, called my friend Madeline, had her bring me a spare white dress, changed into it, and went back out into the floor to dance. Nancy's negativity wouldn't ruin my day. I didn't tell anyone what she did since I didn't want her to ruin my day. I now regret that choice. Caleb and I started trying for a baby soon after our wedding. We had always wanted one, and now that we were married, we were ready. A few months later, I was pregnant. Then calamity hit. After Serafina tripped me and I fell belly first against the stair railing, I miscarried. Ugh. Though I should have been upset, I thought it was an accident. Caleb and I hadn't told anyone since my pregnancy hadn't started showing. I now think she knew. She continued asking cryptic questions and making me drink beer. Both ways, it was heartbreaking. The worst part was that following our next doctor's appointment, they did tests and found it unlikely I'd get pregnant again. I saw Caleb cry for the first time that day. No one knew what happened, but the next time I saw Serafina, she was particularly happy and started saying things about loss and how terrible it is. Not seeing 2 and 2 is still puzzling me. She killed my baby and was so proud of herself that she joked and laughed about it to me while I had no idea. A few months later, the universe smiled down on us again, and I got pregnant again. Caleb and I cried, and he was on his knees kissing my belly. Before I knew it, he was calling in sick to work so he could take me out to eat. My baby needs food, he said. And this baby needs food too. After a few months, Caleb and I hadn't told anyone or seen anyone from either of our families, but we had something planned. With the help of my best friend Madeline, we put together a beautiful nursery for our baby daughter. After reaching the 12-week milestone, which felt like a big achievement, we decided to share our news with our families. We invited them over for an intimate dinner at our home. At dinner time, our home was filled with family warmth and chatter. Ethan and Serafina behaved like lovesick teenagers, constantly grabbing at each other, exchanging kisses and making sounds that were impossible to ignore, especially with everyone present. I felt uncomfortable, and I knew I wasn't alone. Despite this awkwardness, I was determined not to let it derail our SP. As everyone settled in for dinner, Caleb and I exchanged knowing glances, silently agreeing the time had come. We stood up, and Caleb cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. We have something important to share with all of you, he said, excitedly. I showed everyone the ultrasound images I'd been collecting, declaring with a huge smile, "We're expecting?" After hearing what we had to say, the room went wild. Everyone jumped up and ran to embrace us, congratulate us, and share in our joy. Caleb's parents, Vivian and Henry, were especially excited. This would be their first grandchild, and I could see their pride and joy in their eyes. They knew how hard we'd work. She asked, her voice choked with emotion as tears streamed down her face. I nodded, smiling through my own tears. Yes, Mom. More than okay. My brother and his wife hugged Caleb and me, celebrating our parenthood. They were eager to help and provide first-time parenting advice. I admitted to being scared and overthinking every decision. My brother assured me that he felt the same before my niece was born, and his wife nodded. At that time, only family love and support mattered. Everything was coming into place as Caleb and I realized our dreams in the company of our loved ones. Serafina stood out in the evening because she remained motionless in her chair, glaring at us with unmistakable hostility. I couldn't help feeling unsettled by it. When Ethan came over to congratulate me, I quietly asked him why. The evening progressed to the living room for dessert and drinks. I abstained from alcohol, and Caleb did too. We got comfortable, and the conversation naturally drifted to babies and pregnancy. I shared details about the nursery we were designing for Charlotte, feeling proud. Serafina remained quiet, barely participating. She said our room was too bright for a baby to sleep in, suggesting we hadn't addressed the practicalities. Although I patiently mentioned that we would install blackout curtains to darken the room for baby sleep, she hardly regarded my statement. She then asked why we chose yellow over a neutral color scheme. Surprised, I informed her that yellow is just a color and has nothing to do with gender. She then examined our beautifully organized baby clothes in drawers. She mocked them, saying her son had never liked them and that we should have contacted other parents before buying cheap knockoffs. She was dismissive and condescending, which startled me. Before that, I'd been courteous, anticipating she'd be frank, but this crossed a line. I lost control. "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, frustrated. Caleb and I had worked hard to make our baby's life perfect, so her words stunned me. She clearly didn't want to give counsel. Instead, she appeared to be purposefully undermining the evening's joy. My mother, Vivian, and mother-in-law entered the nursery as Serafina was ready to respond, beaming at the room. Their enthusiastic praise of how wonderful everything looked temporarily eased the tension. I wouldn't ignore Serafina's issue. I again asked, "What exactly did you mean by that?" My mother and mother-in-law noticed the tension and knew something was amiss. Mom asked what was up. Serafina had criticized the room and termed our carefully picked baby clothes cheap, so I explained. Both women looked stunned that someone would be so overtly disparaging, especially during such a precious occasion. My mother-in-law laughed and asked Serafina, "Is this true?" She seemed surprised by the sudden confrontation and tried to downplay her earlier comments. She told me the textiles were too rough and suggested softer ones, but my mother and mother-in-law didn't trust her. They shook their heads and laughed quietly, saying the clothing felt nice. Serafina soon retracted, saying that as a mother, she knew better and that I should be open to criticism. My mother spoke hard yet calmly before I could react. "Well, we're mothers too," she said. And we'd never say that to her. "You should know how hard it is being a first-time mother." My mother-in-law also helped. "This isn't appropriate behavior," Serafina said. "There's a difference between offering advice and being needlessly critical." Her face flushed as she realized she was outnumbered and wrong. She was plainly offended but said little. She had a fit and left the nursery. I followed her out to prevent an escalation. Serafina went straight to Ethan, who was still talking with the family in the living room. Without explanation, she said she was leaving immediately. Ethan looked bewildered but didn't dispute her decision, sensing her anxiety. He apologized to everyone, congratulated Caleb and me on the pregnancy again, and left with Serafina. After our announcement dinner, Ethan phoned Caleb and me to apologize for Serafina's actions. After my mother-in-law chastised him for bringing Serafina to such a private family event, he discovered everything. I immediately forgiven Ethan because I realized it wasn't his fault. He felt worried and sought to explain Serafina's wrong behavior. Ethan said Serafina suffered pregnancy trauma. At 16, Serafina fell pregnant with her son. After marriage, they tried to have more children but ran into problems. Their mental health suffered after years of infertility, which led to their divorce. Ethan says Serafina was sensitive to other women's pregnancy, which may explain her unpleasant reaction to our celebration. I understood Serafina's challenges as a woman. I understood her grief and disappointment and knew they had caused emotional wounds. Though I sympathized with her circumstances, her comments during our dinner announcement were unpleasant and inappropriate. So I decided it would be best to maintain some distance from her at future family gatherings to protect the positive atmosphere I wanted to preserve around our growing family. Ethan and Serafina continued dating, and on the day I delivered Charlotte, Ethan called and asked Caleb if he could bring Serafina to visit our newborn. Although we had reservations, Caleb and I reluctantly agreed, hoping perhaps things would be different this time. Unfortunately, this proved to be a mistake. As soon as Serafina saw our baby, she immediately commented on how little hair our newborn had, suggesting this indicated her hair would remain extremely thin as she grew up. Her words felt like a direct attack, and I could see the irritation on Caleb's face as well. This comment was another unnecessary and insensitive remark during what should have been a purely joyful moment. Ethan, sensing the tension in the room, didn't allow Serafina to stay long. After offering brief congratulations, they quickly departed. This year, Ethan shocked everyone by announcing his engagement to Serafina. The news received mixed reactions, particularly from my mother-in-law. She openly expressed disappointment with Ethan's decision to marry Serafina, having never wanted her to become part of the family. Apparently, my mother-in-law and Serafina had been clashing for months. Knowing my mother-in-law is typically warm and kind-hearted, I suspected Serafina's behavior was likely causing their ongoing tension. When Caleb called Ethan to discuss the sudden engagement, believing everything was moving too quickly, Ethan confessed that Serafina was actually 4 months pregnant. Apparently, Ethan had only discovered this 2 months earlier and had kept it secret as they feared judgment before getting married. Ethan explained that he wanted to marry Serafina before their baby arrived, which seemed reasonable given their circumstances. However, during the wedding preparations, Serafina threw a tantrum while trying on wedding gowns because she couldn't fit into any of them. She had gained weight during her pregnancy, making it difficult to wear her dream dress. Ethan attempted to convince her to choose something more comfortable, but she refused to compromise. Ultimately, she demanded that Ethan change their wedding date. Originally planned to occur before the baby's arrival, it was now postponed until a month after the baby's due date so Serafina could lose some pregnancy weight. Despite the frustration the scheduled change might have caused everyone, I understood that this was Ethan and Serafina's special day, and they deserved to choose a date that made them comfortable. A month ago, Serafina delivered her daughter, and Caleb and I had even visited the hospital to congratulate the new parents. For their upcoming wedding, Caleb was selected as Ethan's best man. We weren't comfortable leaving Charlotte behind for the entire day, so we decided to bring our daughter with us. My mother-in-law and I discussed child care arrangements and agreed we could manage looking after Charlotte between us. I initially considered hiring a hotel babysitter, but with increasing concerns about child abductions, I felt safer having a trusted family member watch Charlotte during the reception. I planned to avoid drinking and would retire early to our room anyway, ensuring Charlotte received proper care throughout the event. However, about a week before the wedding, Serafina called me. During our conversation, she asked if I would be bringing Charlotte to the wedding. I confirmed our plans and began explaining our childcare arrangements for the evening. To my surprise, Serafina interrupted me and stated she didn't want Charlotte at the wedding. Shocked, I asked why. Serafina explained that she only wanted her miracle baby to be the center of attention, claiming that Charlotte's presence would divert attention away from her child. I tried reasoning that everyone had already met Charlotte, and nobody could possibly steal attention from Serafina on her wedding day, but Serafina remained adamant and grew increasingly upset. She warned that if I couldn't respect her boundaries, I wouldn't be welcome at the wedding. The situation eventually escalated into a major argument involving Serafina, Ethan, Caleb, and my mother-in-law. Ethan contacted me, apologizing for Serafina's behavior and clarifying that I was still very much invited to the wedding. He urged me not to take Serafina's words too seriously and assured me that bringing Charlotte was absolutely fine. I felt furious with Serafina and considered skipping their wedding entirely, but I knew supporting Caleb and attending his brother's wedding was important. So I decided to set aside my feelings and attend, focusing on making the best of the situation for the sake of family harmony. This brings us to the incident that occurred during Ethan and Serafina's ceremony. Several relatives couldn't resist admiring Charlotte, commenting on how adorable she looked. Serafina occasionally shot me disapproving glances whenever our eyes met. She clearly still resented me bringing Charlotte to her wedding, even though her baby unquestionably remained the star attraction, and I made zero effort to seek attention. When the celebration moved to the reception area, my mother-in-law, Caleb, and I took turns watching Charlotte in our hotel room, exactly as planned. Although my mother-in-law became somewhat tipsy as the evening progressed, Caleb and I remained completely sober, focusing entirely on caring for Charlotte. Midway through the reception, I noticed my mother-in-law, who was supposed to be with Charlotte at that moment, frantically searching for me. Something about her demeanor made my heart race, and I rushed over to discover what was wrong. Caleb, sensing trouble, followed closely behind. My mother-in-law's voice trembled as she whispered that Charlotte was missing. My heart plummeted. Caleb demanded clarification, since he had just left our daughter in her care. That's when my mother-in-law admitted that Serafina had entered the room shortly after he left. They chatted briefly, and at one point my mother-in-law needed to use the bathroom. But when she returned, both Charlotte and Serafina had vanished. Caleb and I, confused and panicked, immediately found Ethan and asked him where Serafina was and why she would do something so alarming. Ethan seemed equally shocked by the situation. Amidst the celebrations and crowds, we alerted hotel staff to search for Charlotte and Serafina. The staff responded immediately, but neither could be found after an hour of searching. I called the police. A hotel employee informed us that Charlotte and Serafina had been found behind the hotel. We rushed outside, feeling dreadful. We found Serafina sitting in a chair, holding Charlotte and smoking with her other hand. Her baby was in a carrier beside her. I cried as I examined Charlotte. Caleb demanded to know why she had done this. My mother-in-law, now completely sober and frantic, screamed at Serafina, explaining she had absolutely no right to take our daughter without permission, and had deliberately disappeared while my mother-in-law was in the bathroom. Serafina simply smirked as she turned toward me, remarking that if I was so worried about my daughter, perhaps I should have listened to her request and not brought her to the wedding. I was stunned, realizing she had deliberately abducted my daughter. She wanted me to panic, searching desperately for my child, just to frighten me and teach me a lesson, hoping I would surrender to her demands in the future. Ethan tried calming everyone, suggesting this might be a misunderstanding. At this point, the police asked if I still wanted to press charges. Looking at Serafina's expression, which showed no remorse or apology for her actions, I decided to proceed with kidnapping charges to ensure she never threatened my family again. Serafina's eyes widened with disbelief as she protested, but police took her into custody immediately. Ethan begged me to reconsider, but my mother-in-law told him his wife's actions were unforgivable. I kept my billion-dollar NFT empire a secret from my family for 15 years, letting them believe I was a failure. On my desk was the invitation to the Sullivan family's yearly reunion. The morning light coming from my penthouse windows caught the gold-embossed writing. The end of 15 years of meticulously kept deceit was imminent, and strangely, it wasn't even my decision. The email that set things off was, Forbes 30 under 40, the new face of digital art. Sophia Sullivan's NFT empire reaches a $3.8 billion valuation. It was scheduled to be published tomorrow, 2 days before the family reunion, so I picked up my phone and read it again. There was nothing I could do to stop the carefully crafted facade from collapsing. My assistant said, "Miss Sullivan," over the intercom. "Your brother Marcus is on line 1 again." He was, of course. Ever since the press release was sent to the main publications, he had been phoning constantly. I inhaled deeply before picking up the phone. "Hello, Marcus?" Without using politeness, he said. "What the hell, Sophia?" "I just got a call from Business Insider asking for a comment about my billionaire sister. Want to explain that?" I reclined in my chair and gazed at the skyline of Manhattan. "I guess you'll have to wait for the article like everyone else." "Cut the crap," he yelled at them. "All these years you've been letting us think you were barely getting by. Mom and Dad have been worried sick about you." I couldn't contain my laughter. "Worried? Is that what you call it? The constant lectures about getting a real job? The snide comments about how I'm wasting my potential? They were trying to help." "No, they were trying to control me, just like they tried to control you. And you let them." On the other end of the telephone, there was silence. The golden son who never deviated from the plan, Marcus had always been the good kid, going to business school, earning an MBA, and working for our father's investment company, was who would at last. Just tell me one thing," he responded. How long have you been hiding this?" I got up and went to the window to watch a private helicopter touch down on the helipad of a nearby building. Actually, it was one of my 3 helicopters. "Remember when I moved to that tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn when you first started with your digital art nonsense? That was," he thought to himself, "15 years ago. That's right. Everyone thought I was crazy, throwing away my finance degree to doodle on computers as Dad called it. But what none of you knew was that I'd already sold my first NFT collection for $50,000. $50,000 back then. And 6 months later I sold another for $200,000. By the time Dad was telling everyone at Christmas dinner that I was going through a phase, I had my first million. I could practically hear him mentally calculating. But you still borrowed money from Mom and Dad for rent. You drove that beat-up Panda until last year." "I never borrowed money from them, Marcus. I asked them to invest in my company. They refused, loudly and repeatedly. The Honda was a choice, not a necessity, just like this penthouse was a choice, and the private jet, and everything else I kept hidden from all of you." His voice broke as he said, "Private jet? Jesus, Sophia, how rich are you exactly?" The way our younger sister Olivia would ostentatiously pick up the check, making sure everyone knew she was supporting her struggling artist sister, brought back memories of family dinners where I was treated like a poor relative. This made me grin. The Forbes article will say $3.8 billion, but that's a conservative estimate. The real number is closer to 5. Marcus produced a sound that was in between a choke and a gasp. Now, if you'll excuse me, I said. I have a board meeting to attend. Oh, and Marcus, I'll see you at the family reunion. I'm thinking of making an entrance. Before he could answer, I hung up and hit the intercom. Sarah, is everything set for the reunion? Yes, Miss Sullivan, the jet is fueled and ready. The car service is arranged for all family members to be picked up in Rolls-Royces. The venue has been updated to the private island as requested, and the NDAs have been prepared for all staff. Perfect. I took up the invitation to the reunion once more. I had been playing the part they wanted me to play for 15 years. The sister who was pity-faced and patronized at every family get-together, the artsy black sheep who couldn't handle the real world, and the daughter who required continual reminders about financial responsibility. Not this time, though. My younger sister Olivia buzzed my phone with a text message that said, "OMG soft, please tell me this Forbes thing is a joke, what's going on?" I didn't respond. Olivia, who at every family get-together would talk about her 6-figure earnings. Olivia, who enjoyed reflecting on how she had survived while her older sister was still discovering herself. Once more the intercom buzzed. "Miss Sullivan, your parents are both on the line." I looked at my watch and said, "Tell them I'm in a meeting. And Sarah, call the helipad. I think I'll take the chopper to the board meeting today." My thoughts turned to the day that it all began, the day I made the decision to keep my achievement a secret from my family, as I gathered my belongings. 15 years prior. As my father's voice roared across the dinner table, "Digital art isn't real art, Sophia, and this NFT nonsense? It's a fad, a scam? No one's going to pay real money for pictures on a computer." Having just graduated from college at the age of 22, I sat there attempting to convey my vision to my family, the same family that had funded my Ivy League finance degree, who anticipated that I would apply it at my father's company. "Actually, Dad, I just sold my first collection for enough." He interrupted me. "I don't want to hear about your little hobby. Either you come work for the firm like we planned, or you're on your own. No more support, no more safety net." My mother patted my hand patronizingly as she reached across the table. "Sweetie, we just want what's best for you. You need stability, a real career." I glanced at their expressions around the table. Marcus's arrogant smirk, Olivia's hardly disguised contempt, my mother's worried frown, and my father's sadness. That's when I decided what to do. I would keep the $50,000 sale, the 3 galleries interested in representing me, and the tech companies contacting me about joint ventures a secret. "You're right," I murmured as I got to my feet. "I need to figure this out on my own." I moved into the tiniest and least expensive studio apartment I could locate in Brooklyn 2 weeks later. My family believed I was having financial difficulties and was too arrogant to acknowledge my failure. I was actually creating an empire. It was a demanding first year. During my 18-hour workdays, I honed my artistic abilities, gained knowledge of blockchain technology, and made contacts in the crypto art community. Digital Dreams and Binary, my first significant collection, raised $1.2 million after selling out in a matter of hours. I used that money to reinvest in the company, recruiting developers, building new artist platforms, and inventing in ways that the conventional art world could not have predicted. However, whenever I went home, I dressed simply, drove my old Honda, and played the role of the struggling artist. My mother would say, "At least let me help with your rent," and my father would shake his head in dismay. "No thanks, Mom, I'm doing fine." And everything was okay with me. My net worth reached $10 million by the conclusion of the first year. In the third year, $100 million. My family, however, still saw me as Sophia, the idealist who was unable to deal with reality. As I got into my own helicopter 15 years later, I reflected on how everything had turned out to be more complicated than I had anticipated. The small lie had grown into a huge secret, and everything would alter in 2 days. When my phone buzzed once more, it was my father's message. "We need to talk now." Grinning, I hung up the phone. Waiting for the reunion would be their only option. They had been listening to my failures for 15 years, and now they were going to hear about my accomplishment. I wanted to make sure that they would never forget my discovery. At precisely 6 a.m., the Forbes piece was published. Eastern Time. As I watched the mayhem play out on my numerous screens, I was already awake and enjoying a cup of coffee at my home office. The headline read, "Digital Art Revolutionary: How Sophia Sullivan Built a Multi-Billion-Dollar Empire in Secret," and included a picture I had picked out especially for the occasion, me standing in front of my most successful NFT collection, dressed in clothing that exceeded my sister Olivia's monthly salary. In addition to disclosing my fortune, the piece listed all of my accomplishments that I had kept a secret for 15 years. There were so many notifications on my phone. The family group chat started first. Olivia asks, "Is this for real $3.8 billion? Marcus said, "I tried to warn you all yesterday." Mother. "Sophia, please answer your phone." Father. "This must be some kind of mistake. Just saw the article. Is our Sophia the Sophia Sullivan?" said Aunt Patricia. I turned off the conversation and opened my emails, which included hundreds of requests for interviews from well-known news organizations, investment opportunities, and speaking engagements. "Sophia, I think we need to discuss potential synergies between Sullivan Investments and your digital art platforms. Your father may have mentioned some concerns, but I assure you we can be quite flexible." Read an email that attracted my attention from Albert Chen, my father's business partner. I couldn't contain my laughter. I had inquired for a partnership with their firm 3 years prior. I was shown the door by Albert himself, who informed me that they did not deal in internet pictures. It buzzed on my intercom. "Miss Sullivan, your mother is in the lobby. She's quite insistent." I looked at the security feed. As she battled with the security guard, my mother, Alina Sullivan, was there, looking put together in her designer suit but with an unaccustomed wildness in her eyes. I groaned and said, "Let her up." At least one of my family members needed to be confronted. My penthouse was readily accessible by private elevator. After stepping outside, my mother paused to observe the enormous open area, the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Central Park, and the original Basquiat on the wall, which most likely cost more than their home. "Sophia," she murmured in a shaky voice. What is all this?" "This is my home, Mom. The real one, not the small apartment I keep for family visits." Her heel clicks reverberated on the marble floor as she made her way to the window. How did you?" I poured her a cup of coffee and added, "It's been 15 years since Dad said my digital art would never amount to anything." Her face was a mix of hurt and bewilderment as she turned. "But you struggled. We saw it. The tiny apartment, the old car, borrowing money for rent." "I never borrowed money," I refute this statement. "I asked you and Dad to invest in my company. That's the difference. And everything else. The apartment, the car, that was all just theater." "Theater?" she asked. "You've been lying to us for 15 years. "No, Mom, I just let you see what you wanted to see. You all were so convinced I was failing that you never bothered to look closer." She looked abruptly elderly as she slumped into one of my Italian leather chairs. "Does anyone else in the family?" "No one." "Well, Marcus found out yesterday when the press release went out. I suppose he tried to warn you." She gave a feeble nod. "He called, but your father was sure it was a mistake. Some other Sophia Sullivan." I went to get a file from my desk. "Here's something that might interest you. The investment opportunity I tried to present to Dad 3 years ago. If he had invested the $1 million I asked for, his share would be worth roughly $100 million today." She accepted the file with trembling hands. He said you wanted a handout, that you were too proud to admit your art wasn't working out. And you believed him, just like you believed him about my struggling artist's life. Tell me, Mom, in 15 years, did any of you ever actually come to one of my shows, check out my work, even Google my name?" She was unable to look me in the eye. "That's what I thought." I approached the window and gazed down at the city that I now controlled in part. The annual family reunion is in 2 days. I've made some changes to the arrangements. "Changes?" "I bought out the entire resort where it was supposed to be held. Too public. Instead, everyone will be picked up by my private cars and taken to my jet. We'll be having the reunion on my island." "Your island? In the Caribbean?" "I bought it last year when I closed my first $1 billion deal." I looked over at her. "And Mom, this time I won't be the one sitting quietly while everyone talks about their successes. This time I have some things to say." She straightened her skirt with trembling hands and got to her feet. "Your father, when he sees all this, he'll finally have to admit that his little girl playing with computer pictures built something bigger than his entire family legacy." I grinned. "And that's just the beginning." Before she could enter, I added one final item after I escorted her to the elevator. "Oh, and Mom, that Bentley you've been dreaming about, but Dad says it's too expensive. I bought 3 last month, just because I could." She was horrified as the elevator doors closed. I contacted my assistant as soon as she left. "Sarah, is everything ready for the reunion?" "Yes, Miss Sullivan. The island staff is prepared. The documentation packages have been assembled for each family member," showing exactly when they dismissed your investment opportunities and what those shares would be worth today. And the video presentation of your success timeline is ready. Perfect. Finally, I took up my phone and sent a single message in response to the family group chat. Looking forward to seeing everyone at the reunion. Dress appropriately for a private island. Transportation will be provided. I then checked the market on my laptop. The Forbes piece caused the stock of my company to rise. Before breakfast, my net worth increased by another $1 billion. I imagined my father, who was likely sitting in his office at the moment, trying to comprehend how his failing daughter had subtly become one of the wealthiest people in the nation. I also thought about my sister Olivia, who enjoyed boasting about her six-figure salary and Hampton's vacation home, and how I could buy her a lifetime with the interest I earned every day. It was going to be an interesting reunion. Really fascinating, in fact. My father had left a message on my phone, which buzzed once more. We need to meet before the reunion. Family matters should be discussed privately. I replied, everything will be discussed at the reunion, Dad. After all, isn't that what family reunions are for? Sharing our successes. I then gave Sarah another call. Contact the design team. I want the island's helipad repainted before the reunion, and make sure my name is visible from the air when they land. Already done, Miss Sullivan. Anything else? I considered 15 years of rudeness, sympathy, and being viewed as the family's failure. Yes. Make sure the Forbes article is framed and hanging in every room of the island resort. I want it to be the first thing they see, no matter where they turn. I saw my reflection in the window as I hung up, prosperous, strong, and at last prepared to show my family who I had grown into while they were busy questioning me. The reunion countdown had started. The Sullivan family reunion day came bright and clear. As I stood on my private airfield's tarmac, I saw 3 Rolls-Royces pull up in formation. My folks were here. The doors opened and the cars came to a stop. Marcus, Olivia, and other aunts, uncles, and cousins followed, all sporting faces ranging from shock to barely disguised hostility. My mother, still appearing unsettled from our meeting 2 days ago, and my father, his normally imposing presence seemingly weakened. And my shining private airplane was sitting there, front and center, with the magnificent letters Sullivan Digital Empire inscribed on its side. I said, "Welcome everyone," sounding clear over the tarmac. "I trust the ride was comfortable?" "Safia," my dad said, attempting to sound more authoritative. "This is unnecessary. We could have had a perfectly good reunion at the resort." I grinned. "The resort was too public, Dad. Besides, I think it's time for some real family bonding. On my island." "Your island," Olivia whispered, holding her high-end purse tightly. "Of course, you have an island." To put it mildly, the flight was fascinating. My family members' gazes raced around the luxury cabin as they settled down, taking in the rare artwork, the solid gold fittings, and the vintage champagne supplied by the spotlessly trained crew. Aunt Patricia looked at the painting on a cabin wall and murmured, Is that a real Picasso?" "Yes," I said nonchalantly. "I bought it last year, along with a few others." My dad cleared his throat. "Sophia, perhaps we should discuss." "We'll discuss everything when we land, Dad. For now, enjoy the flight. The champagne is particularly good." I took a deep breath. "Costs more than your company's quarterly profits." He winced. We started our descent 2 hours later. My private island, a 300-acre tropical paradise with a cutting-edge resort complex at its heart, was visible through the windows. There it was, my name in letters big enough to be seen from space. Sullivan, visible from the air as I had intended. Olivia gasped as we touched down. Millions upon millions of dollars worth of digital art projected onto enormous screens ringed the helipad, each display showcasing my most popular NFT collections and conspicuously displaying their sale prices. As we disembarked, I said, "Welcome to Sullivan Island. My own little piece of paradise." "Little," Marcus stutteringly said. The resort complex, a masterwork of contemporary design that merged perfectly with the beauty of nature, stretched out in front of us. I went on, "Everyone's rooms have been assigned. You'll find some reading material waiting for you. I suggest you review it before dinner." Each family member's reading selection was thoughtfully chosen. For my dad, records of all my investment opportunities that he turned down, including with the most recent estimates. For Olivia, a comparison between my daily interest earnings and her yearly pay. For Marcus, specifics on how his company's refusal to collaborate with my business cost them millions of dollars. After letting them get settled and process the information for an hour, I called them into the main dining area. The suite, which had floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean, was a design marvel. The room was dominated by a huge table, each place setting likely worth more than the cars of most people. And that Forbes article, exquisitely framed, on each wall. Shell-shocked, my family slowly filed in. Even their pricey clothing seemed somewhat insufficient in these conditions, even though they had changed for supper. "Please sit," I said before pointing to the table. "We have a lot to discuss." As soon as everyone was seated, my father said, "Sophia, I think I speak for everyone when I say we're surprised." "Surprised?" I said with a quiet laugh. "That's an interesting word choice. Not angry that I deceived you, not hurt that I hid my success, just surprised?" "We didn't know," my mom said. I told her, "You didn't want to know," instead. "Every time I tried to tell you about my work, you changed the subject. Every time I offered investment opportunities, you dismissed them. You were so convinced I was failing that you couldn't see my success, even when it was right in front of you." Olivia cut in. "But the apartment, the old car, all those times you let me pay for dinner. Because you thought I couldn't afford it," I concluded for her. "Did you enjoy that, Olivia? Playing the successful sister, making sure everyone knew you were helping out poor struggling Sophia?" She was graceful enough to appear embarrassed. After saying, "Let me show you something," I pressed a button. Screens dropped from the ceiling, showing a history of my achievements over the years, along with their contemptuous remarks. 2008, "Digital art isn't real art, Dad. My first collection sells for $50,000. 2010, "When are you going to get a real job, Mom? Company valuation hits $10 million. 2015, "At least I can afford to help my sister out, Olivia. Net worth passes $500 million. 2020, "We don't invest in internet pictures, Dad's firm. Company valuation reaches $1 billion. Every doubt, every dismissal, every condescending comment, I gently said, I remembered them all. And with each one I built something bigger." My father's voice broke as he asked, "Why? Why hide it?" "Because you needed to learn something. All of you did. Success doesn't look just one way. Innovation doesn't follow your predetermined path. And sometimes, the child you wrote off as a failure might just be the one who succeeds beyond your wildest dreams." I got up and moved toward the window. "Do you know what the hardest part was? Not the secrecy, not pretending to struggle. It was watching you all celebrate mediocrity while dismissing true innovation." "Mediocrity?" snarled Marcus. "Yes, mediocrity. You followed Dad's safe path, Marcus. Got the job he wanted you to get, made the safe investments. And you," I said to Olivia, "you bragged about your six-figure salary while I was making that much in minutes." "That's enough," said my dad. "You've made your point. We were wrong. Is that what you want to hear?" "No, Dad. What I want is for you to understand, I really understand. This," I pointed to the wealth around us, "isn't about money. It's about vision. The vision you couldn't see because you were too busy clinging to the past." I hit another button, and fresh visuals popped up on the screens. My most recent endeavor, a groundbreaking platform that would revolutionize the production, purchase, and sale of digital art. When I said, "This launches next month," conservative estimates put its value at $10 billion. I'm showing you this because for once I want you to see what I'm building before it happens. No more dismissing it, no more doubting. As they processed the ramifications, the room became quiet. My mother finally said something. "We're proud of you, Sophia. We should have been proud all along." "Thank you, Mom. But I didn't do this for your pride. I did it because it was my dream, my vision, and now," I grinned, "it's my empire." Marcus said, "So what happens now?" Now we have dinner, as a family. But this time, we'll do it my way. No more pretending, no more hiding. And tomorrow, we'll tour the island, and I'll show you exactly what your daughter, sister, and niece has built while you weren't paying attention." I held up my glass. To the truth, finally. They were rather dizzy when they lifted their glasses. Fine wine, delicious cuisine, and slowly thawing chats filled the remainder of the evening. My family was starting to notice me. Truly see me. First time in 15 years. That evening, I remained in the dining room and gazed out at the moonlit ocean as others went to their apartments. Sarah, my helper, showed up beside me. With a whisper she questioned, "Was it worth it? The big reveal?" I considered the expressions on their faces. The astonishment, the insight, the slow comprehension. "Yes," I said. But not for what I had anticipated. It was about being able to be wholly myself at last, not about proving them incorrect. "And tomorrow," laughed I, "tomorrow we show them the future. Their safe, predictable world of traditional investments and conventional success is over. It's time for them to understand that the daughter they wrote off as a dreamer wasn't just dreaming. She was building a new world while they weren't looking. Later that evening, I discovered a note written by my father that had been hidden behind my door. I was wrong. Not just about the business, but about everything. You didn't just succeed, you revolutionized an entire industry. I'm sorry I couldn't see it sooner. Dad? As a reminder of my beginnings and progress, I framed the note and placed it next to my first NFT sale receipt for $50,000. My family's attitudes abruptly shifted the following morning as I observed them getting together for breakfast. I came to a significant realization. Sometimes proving yourself correct is just as important to success as proving others incorrect. The quiet awareness that you created something remarkable while everyone else was busy doubting you can often be the sweetest victory, rather than the revelation of accomplishment. The news alert that buzzed on my phone read, "Sullivan Digital Empire announces revolutionary new platform." The time had come for my family to witness the unfolding of the future in real time. No more pretending or concealing.